Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto Vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
Naruto Uzumaki, holding tightly to the railing. From the balcony, his knuckles were white and his teeth were clenched. He had just witnessed two fights that had shaken the foundations of his own soul. First it was Sakura. He had seen the girl he was always infatuated with cut his hair, his greatest pride, to protect him and Sasuke, in the forest of death. Then, he watched her fight Hino with a ferocity that depended not on any noble clan, but on her pure and absolute chakra control, and a willpower that refused to break. Sakura was no longer the little girl crying for help. She had become a kunoichi willing to heal for his team. And then, Hinata, the shy heiress of the Iga clan, the girl who always hid and played with her fingers, had planted herself in front of Neji, a genius who surpassed her in every way. Naruto watched her take hits that would have shattered anyone, coughing up blood, but refusing to take back her words because he was looking at her. Her girl way, inspired by Naruto himself, kept her standing until her body collapsed. That night, the Konoha sky was clear, adorned by a full moon that bathed the rooftops with a silvery light. Naruto couldn't sleep. The chakra inside him was restless, not because of the nine-tailed fox, but because of a storm of emotions that he was finally understanding. His childhood infatuation for Sakura had transformed into a deep respect and admiration. But, at the same time, Hinata's warmth and sacrifice had ignited a protective fire in his chest that refused to go out. Jumping over the rooftops, Naruto made his way to Konoha's hospital. I needed to see them. He needed to make sure they were both okay. Dodging the nurses on duty with their shadow clones, Naruto slipped through the window of Sakura's room. The girl with pink hair was sitting on the bed, with her arms bandaged, looking at the moon with a melancholy expression. "Naruto," Sakura whispered, surprised to see him sneak in. "What are you doing here? Kakashi-sensei ordered us to rest." Naruto scratched the back of his neck, but his usual nervous smile didn't appear. Instead, his blue gaze was serious and direct. "I couldn't sleep, Sakura-chan. I needed to see you. You were amazing today. In the forest, and against Hino. You were the bravest of all of us." Sakura lowered her gaze, her cheeks staining a slight crimson. Naruto's words no longer sounded like the empty compliments of the hyperactive kid from the academy. They sounded like the plain truth of a comrade in arms. "Thank you, Naruto. But I'm still weak. I couldn't protect you and Sasuke like I wanted to." "That's not true." Naruto shortened the distance, sitting on the edge of his bed. "You are strong, Sakura. And I swear I'm going to train until my bones break, so you never have to cry from helplessness again. I will protect you, always." Before Sakura could respond to the blonde's overwhelming sincerity, a small noise in the hallway caught Naruto's attention. His heightened senses detected a familiar, faint but unmistakable chakra. Naruto peeked through the half-open door. A few meters away, Hinata Iga was walking slowly down the hallway, leaning against the wall. He had just left the intensive care ward and was on his way to the water dispensary. She was pale and covered with bandages after the ruthless blows of Neji al-Hyuk in soft fist. Naruto didn't hesitate. He left Sakura's room and ran to the Iga heiress just as her knees were giving way. He caught her before she touched the ground, holding her firmly but with extreme delicacy. "Hinata, what are you doing up? That idiot Neji almost killed you." Naruto scolded her gently, his voice filled with genuine concern. And Hinata opened his eyes wide, his face turning completely red as he realized that he was in Naruto's arms. "Nah, Naruto-kun. Me. I was just thirsty. And I didn't want to disturb the nurses." Sakura, having heard the commotion, came out of her room and saw the scene. Instead of feeling jealous or upset, a strange feeling of empathy invaded her when she saw Hinata so fragile but so brave. Sakura came closer, laying a comforting hand on the Iga girl's shoulder. "Naruto is right, Hinata. Your chakra network is still unstable. Let us help you." Between the two of them, They took Hinata back to one of the empty rooms in the recovery area and sat her on the bed. Sakura, using the little medical knowledge she had started reading in her scrolls, checked Hinata's bandages, while Naruto handed her a glass of water. The silence in the room was not uncomfortable. He was filled with a silent understanding. Naruto looked at the two girls in front of him, the fire and cherry tree kunoichi, and the snow and moon kunoichi. In his heart, the decision was forged like the tempered steel of a kune. I wasn't going to choose. She was not going to give up the light that both of them brought to her. I knew it was something unconventional, something the shinobi world might not immediately understand, but he was Uzumaki Naruto. Breaking the rules was his specialty. Hinata. Naruto began, kneeling down in front of her to look directly into her pearl eyes. You were amazing today. When you didn't give up in front of Neji, you gave me a strength I didn't even know I had. You're incredibly strong. Hinata's tears threatened to overflow. The guy she had always secretly admired was finally seeing her, not as a weird girl, but as a worthy kunoichi. It was all thanks to you, Naruto-kun. Your words, they saved me. Naruto took one of Hinata's bandaged hands, and, with the other, he reached for Sakura's hand, who looked at him with surprise. The blonde took a deep breath, his chakra throbbing with absolute determination. Listen to me, both of you, Naruto said, his steady voice echoing in the silent hospital room. All my life I've been alone. Everyone looked at me with hatred or pity. But you too. You see me for who I am. Sakura, your strength and your intelligence force me to be better every day. And Hinata, your kindness and your courage remind me why I want to protect this village. Sakura and Hinata exchanged a fleeting glance, both with their hearts beating wildly. I don't know how the clan world works, nor do I care about stupid rules, Naruto continued, gently squeezing both of their hands. I just know I don't want to lose either of them. My feelings for you are real. I want to be by your side, protect you, and make myself stronger for you. I know it's a lot to ask. I know I sound like a selfish jerk, but… Sakura interrupted him, squeezing his hand firmly. A small smile, but full of a nascent maturity, was drawn on his face. You're a complete idiot, Naruto. A loud, reckless, airheaded idiot, Sakura let out a small laugh, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. The blind obsession for Sasuke had blinded her to the sun that had always been by her side. But you're our idiot. You're always there when the world is falling apart. If you ask me to share the person who cares the most about us, I think I can learn to live with it if Hinata agrees. Hinata, red to the ears, but with a courage that had just been born in the fire of combat, slowly nodded her fingers, intertwining with those of Naruto. And I just want Naruto-kun to be happy. See, Sakura-san is also in his heart. So, I want to walk beside him too. Of the two of us. Naruto felt that his chest was going to burst with pure happiness. Tears stung in her blue eyes, but she refused to let them fall. He got up, drawing both girls into an awkward but incredibly warm embrace, wrapping them in his orange jacket. In that embrace, under the moonlight filtering through the hospital window, an unbreakable pact was sealed. 3 destinies were definitively intertwined. Sakura would be the perfect control and devastating force. And Hinata would be the unwavering vision and the healing touch. And Naruto would be the infinite chakra and the shield that would never fall. But the peace of that night had its days numbered. The finals of the Chunin exams were a month away, and the shadow of Orochimaru was already hovering over the hidden village of the Leaf. To protect his 2 sons, Naruto needed a power to rival the monsters. And his meeting with the legendary Sannin of the Toads, Jiraiya, was about to unleash the true strength of the Hinchiriki. The month of preparation for the finals of the Chunin exams began with overwhelming intensity. Naruto knew that taking on Neiri-ga would require much more than shadow clones and willpower. I needed real power. His initial training with Ebisu was quickly interrupted at the hot springs by the appearance of an eccentric man with long white hair. Riding on a toad, the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya. Naruto didn't waste any time. After convincing Jiraiya to train him using his infamous sexy jutsu, the Sannin took him just outside the village. Hirai already immediately noticed that Naruto's seal was unstable due to Orochimaru's previous intervention in the Forest of Death. With a quick 5-point tap, he released the boy's chakra flow, but the real challenge was just beginning. In order to master summoning jutsu, you need to exhaust all of your normal chakra and learn how to extract the nine-tailed fox red chakra that resides inside of you, Jiraiya explained, his tone losing all trace of banter. It's a matter of life and death, brat. Jiraiya was not subtle. He pushed Naruto over the edge, from an immense abyss. As he plummeted into the darkness, the wind roaring in his ears, Naruto's initial panic was replaced by absolute clarity. He closed his eyes and immersed himself in his own mental space. There, in front of the huge cage of the demon, the fox with the 9 tails was looking at him with bloodshot eyes, distilling hatred and pure murderous intent. "You're coming to beg for my power, you brat," Kurama growled, his voice making the murky water on the ground shake. Naruto did not shrink. He stood in front of the immense bars, his gaze blue, burning with a determination that the fox had rarely seen in his previous containers. "I'm not here to beg you, you stupid fox. You live in my body, and you pay rent. I need your chakra, now. I made a promise to 2 people very important to me. I promised that I would become the shield that would protect them from any monster in this world. If I die here, that promise is broken. And Uzumaki Naruto never breaks his promises." The fox let out a deep, guttural laugh. The boy's audacity was irritating, but his willpower was undeniable. "Take this chakra, brat, as a reward for having the guts to look me in the eye." A torrent of red chakra, boiling and massive, flooded Naruto's body. In the real world, just a few meters from crashing into the bottom of the abyss, Naruto bit his thumb, joined his hands, and charged. He analyzed the monstrous energy. Senjutsu knife. Invocation jutsu? An explosion of white smoke filled the entire canyon. When it disappeared, Naruto was panting, lying on the rough head of Gamabunta, the huge toad chief of Mount Meiboku. He had achieved the impossible. He had mastered the beast within, not out of selfish desperation, but anchored to the love he had sworn to protect. As Naruto waged his battle in the abyss, on the other side of Konoha, an equally powerful bond was beginning to be forged. Sakura Aruno was walking along the trails of the Iga clan compound. His heart was pounding hard. After the confession at the hospital, she and Jimata had agreed to meet. If they were going to share Naruto's heart, they had to understand each other, respect each other, and, above all, become strong together. They couldn't just be the girls waiting for the hero to save them. And Nada was waiting for her in a private training clearing, surrounded by bamboo. He was no longer wearing bandages, but he still moved with some rigidity. When he saw Sakura, he gave her a shy but warm smile. "That's Sakura-san. I'm glad you came," Inada said, bowing slightly. Sakura shook her head and came closer, taking the heiress Iga's hands firmly. "No formalities, Inada. We're partners now. In every way. Naruto is training with a Sannin right now. If we want to be by his side, we have to stop being the weak link. Your Yakugan and smooth fist control are amazing, but your confidence is holding you back. And my chakra control is perfect, but I don't have offensive jutsus or the necessary physical strength." Inada's pearl eyes opened slightly, understanding the intention of the girl with pink hair. "Do you want us to train together?" "I want us to become invincible," Sakura stated, her green eyes shining with resolve. "I will help you with advanced chakra control exercises so that your soft fist does not deplete your reserves so quickly. And I want you to use your Byakugan to teach me how to evade physical attacks and how to read the enemy's blind spots. We will be the perfect defense and the precise attack." The training between the cherry tree and the snow began. It was brutal and thorough. And Nada, accustomed to her father's severity, was surprised by Sakura's iron discipline. The girl from Team 7 was not giving up, falling and getting up again and again after Inada's palm strikes. In return, Sakura taught Inada to concentrate her chakra on microscopic points on her hands, increasing the lethality of her soft fist without taking off, wasting energy, and introducing it to the basics of genjutsu to create minor illusions that would disorient the opponent, before hitting his tenketsu, his chakra points. One afternoon, exhausted and covered in sweat, they both let themselves down on the green grass of the training ground, breathing with difficulty. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky with orange hues. And Nada looked at the sky, a peaceful smile curving her lips. The sky? He looks like him, doesn't he? Sakura let out a small laugh, turning her head to look at her new sister-in-arms. Yes. Bright, noisy, and absolutely impossible to ignore. You know, Inada. At first, I was terrified at the thought of sharing this. I thought it would mean that he loved me less. But watching you train, seeing how you care about him, I realized that Naruto's heart is as big as his chakra. It has enough light for both. And Nada nodded, the tears of happiness stinging in her eyes. He came closer and rested his head on Sakura's shoulder. I was scared too. Hey, but with you here, I feel stronger. We will protect him, Sakura-chan. Both of them. 3 days before the finals, Naruto woke up in a Konoha hospital bed. His muscles ached as if he had been crushed by a mountain, the result of the pitched fight to earn Gamabunta's respect. As he tried to sit up, he felt a weight on both sides of his bed. He opened his eyes, and the pain disappeared immediately. To his left, Sakura was sleeping soundly, her head resting on the mattress, and her hands intertwined with the blonde's left. To her right, Inada was also resting, sitting on a chair, holding her right hand against her cheek. Both had small scratches and new bandages on their arms, irrefutable proof of the intense training they had shared. Naruto's heart was filled with an overwhelming heat. All his life, he had woken up to empty rooms, surrounded by silence and cold walls. Now, the two sons of his life were there, anchoring him to the world, taking care of him, while he regained strength to fight for them. He gently squeezed the hands of both of them. Sakura was the first to wake up, blinking drowsily before opening, the eyes of shock to see him conscious. Naruto. Idiot, you scared the hell out of us. Hirai Isama brought you unconscious 2 days ago. Sakura's scream woke up Inada, who, seeing Naruto awake, couldn't help but throw herself forward, hugging him with a force that belied his usual shyness. Naruto-kun. You're safe. Naruto laughed softly, reciprocating Inada's hug and luring Sakura to join them. He wrapped them both in his arms, inhaling the aroma of cherry trees and lotus flowers. I'm fine. In fact, I'm better than ever. I managed to master the summoning jutsu. Now I have the power to defeat Neji and anyone who tries to harm them. Sakura broke off a little, looking at him with a sharp and proud smile. You'd better, Naruto. Because Inada and I have not stood idly by. We have become strong. We're going to be in the stands, supporting you, but if you ever stumble, we'll pick you up. Inada nodded firmly, her pearl eyes devoid of her former doubt. We will always be with you, Naruto-kun. Your ninja path is ours. The day of the finals finally arrived. The stadium was crowded, and the shadow of the invasion of the arena and the sound hung over them like a silent storm. But Naruto was not afraid. As he walked towards the center of the arena to face Neiri, he looked up towards the stands. There they were, Sakura and Hinata, standing together, smiling at him and giving him the trust of a god. The fight that would change the fate of the Iga clan and ignite the spark of the Fourth Ninja War was about to begin. And Uzumaki Naruto was ready to show the whole world why they should never, ever underestimate the boy who was protecting his two queens. The Konoha Stadium roared with anticipation. The air was saturated with dust and tension, but in the center of the arena, Naruto Uzumaki's calm was absolute. In front of him, Neiri watched with his Yakugan activated, the veins throbbing around his pale eyes. Your fate was sealed the moment you stepped on this sand, Uzumaki sentenced Neji, adopting the posture of the soft fist. You're a failure. And failures will always be failures. That is something that cannot be changed, as well as the fact that the main branch will always dominate the secondary one. In the stands, Sakura clenched her fists against the railing. Next to him, Inada lowered her gaze for a microsecond, feeling the weight of her cousin's words. But the memory of the warmth of Naruto's hand the night before made her straighten up suddenly. Downstairs, Naruto didn't shout or brag. She looked up towards the stands, crossing glances with the two kunoichi that gave meaning to her struggle, and then she fixed her blue, cold and determined eyes on the genius of which the friend. You talk too much about fate to be someone who is trapped in a cage that you closed yourself, Naruto replied, joining his hands on Cruz's seal. You tore Hinata apart because you were terrified to see that someone you considered weak had the courage to try to change. I'm going to smash that cage of yours, Neji. Kajiban without no jutsu. Shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of Naruto clones burst into white smoke, hurtling towards Neji. The battle was a whirlwind of taijutsu. Neji moved with lethal grace, dodging and deflecting attacks with his Akashika. And have celestial rotation of the 8 trigrams, an absolute defense of rotating chakra that repelled every attempt of the blonde. Finally, Neji found his opening. He slipped under the guard of the real Naruto and began his most devastating technique. You are within my field of divination. To that Rokujiansh. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. 2 hits. 4 hits. 8, 16, 32, 64 punches connected on Naruto's tenketsus, violently disrupting his chakra network and sending him flying through the air. The blonde fell heavily on the stone, coughing and feeling that his body weighed tons. It's over, Neji declared, deactivating his Yakugan. Your chakra points are closed. You can't even stand up. Give up and accept your destiny. On the balcony, Hinata put her hands to her mouth, choking out a scream, while Sakura channeled chakra into her hands, ready to jump into the arena if the examiner didn't stop the massacre. But both froze when they felt a drastic change in the atmosphere. In the center of the stadium, Naruto leaned on his hands and knees. In his mental space, the immense cage of the Ninetales lit up. You're not going to fail me now, you stupid fox, Naruto demanded, remembering the oath he had sworn to his 2 sons. In the hospital room, I promised that it would be the strongest shield in Konoha. Give me your chakra. A burst of dense, boiling, overwhelming red energy exploded from Naruto's body. The pressure in the stadium was so massive that the stone floor began to crack. The tenketsus that energy had shut down were reopened to brute force by the sheer power of the Kurama chakra. The wind howled around the Hinshiriki, forming a small crater under his feet. Neji stepped back, his face turning pale for the first time. So what? What is this monstrous chakra? Naruto stood up, his blue eyes replaced by scarlet red. And the torn pupils. Without saying another word, he rushed towards Neji at a breakneck speed. The Iga tried to use his celestial rotation again, but Naruto wasn't going to be repelled. He concentrated the red chakra in his fist and crashed directly into Neji's spinning dome. The impact was like the collision of 2 meteorites. The arena kicked up a cloud of dust that covered the entire stadium. There was a sepulchral silence, followed by the sound of a body falling heavily. When the dust cleared, the celestial rotation had been shattered. Neji lay on the ground, unable to move, staring at the open sky in disbelief. A few meters away, Naruto, bruised and bleeding, emerged from an underground hole that he had finished in the last microsecond. To deliver the knockout blow from below, having used the main shock as a distraction. You really changed him, Meiji muttered, his fate torn to pieces by the boy he considered trash. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto, announced the examiner Genma. The stadium erupted in deafening roars. Naruto stood, the red chakra fading. He looked up at the stairs, and there they were. Sakura jumping with pure euphoria, and Jimata with tears of joy and pride running down her cheeks. Naruto raised his fist towards them, a silent promise that this was just the beginning. But the celebration wasn't meant to last. Minutes later, during the match between Sasuke and Gaara, the sky seemed to darken. A shower of white feathers began to fall gently over the stadium. Genjutsu! Sakura shouted in the upper stands. His chakra control training and Kakashi's lessons took immediate effect. He joined his hands on the tiger seal. Kai! Release! The illusion was broken for her. Quickly, he turned to Hinata, who was beginning to stagger, closing her eyes under the effect of induced sleep. Sakura placed her hands on the shoulders of the Iga Aris and channeled her own chakra to interrupt the flow of the enemy genjutsu in her companion. "Wake up, Hinata. They're attacking us." Hinata suddenly opened her eyes, her Yakugan activating out of pure survival instinct. The stadium was chaos. The sand and sound ninjas had revealed their true identity, attacking the Konoha guards. Explosions resounded in the box of the O-Cage. The invasion of Orochimaru had begun. Two sound ninjas, covered in gray robes, jumped towards the position of the two girls. "Konoha brats, you will die here if one of them," throwing a shower of poisoned senbon. Sakura and Jimata didn't back down. They were not the same girls who depended on others. "Sakura-chan, you're 3 o'clock." Hinata screamed, her 360-degree vision processing the attack in slow motion. Hinata stepped in, using her soft fist to create a quick burst of chakra from her palms that deflected the poisonous needles in mid-flight. At the same time, Sakura did not miss her chance. He formed a single-hand seal and concentrated his chakra on the ground under the feet of the invaders. Magen Narikumi no Jutsu. Demonic illusion jutsu of vision of hell. The sound ninjas froze for a second, their eyes widening as they saw a terrifying illusion sprout from the ground. That second was all Hinata needed. Gliding with the lethal grace of his clan, he struck the vital points of both enemies' arms and legs, paralyzing their chakra network and rendering them unconscious on the ground. Sakura gasped slightly, smiling as she saw the enemies fall. "That was a good teamwork, Hinata. There is no time to celebrate. Naruto-kun. Where is Naruto-kun?" Hinata scanned the stadium with her Yakugan. Down in the arena, Kakashiwi were repelling dozens of enemies. Kakashi intercepted Naruto, Sakura and Jimata, who had jumped into the arena, along with Shikamaru and the ninja dog Pakin. "Sasuke is chasing Gaara into the forest," Kakashi ordered quickly. "The Hinchiriki of the arena is unstable. Naruto, Sakura, Shikamaru, your rank mission is to track them down and stop them." "I'm coming too." And Nada took a step forward, her voice surprising even her own father, and So, who was struggling a few meters away. And Nada looked Kakashi straight in the eyes. "My Yakugan is essential for tracking his chakra signatures through the forest, and I can detect traps that Pakin doesn't fly. Please." Kakashi assessed the situation in a microsecond. Sakura and Naruto were already nodding, backing her up. "Fine. Form a squad. Go now and don't die." The squad entered the forest thicket at a breakneck speed. Shikamaru and Pakin went to the front, looking for the immediate trail, while Hinata used his Yakugan to scan kilometers ahead. And Sakura and Naruto covered the flanks. The forest was a minefield. As they were jumping from branch to branch, Shikamaru noticed that they were being followed by a squad of Honins from the sound. "They're hot on our heels. Someone has to stay to create a distraction, or they'll catch up with us before we get to Sasuke," Shikamaru said annoyingly. "Preparing to stop." "I'll do it." Naruto stopped at a branch, but before he could trace the seal of his clones, Sakura grabbed his arm. "You're the only one who has the destructive strength to confront Gaara if he loses control, Naruto. Keep going. Shikamaru and I will stay." Naruto looked at her, panic startling in his eyes. "Are you crazy, Sakura-chan? They are Honins." Sakura gave him a defiant smile, releasing his arm and pulling out a wedge. "I'm the best chakra control student in the academy, you idiot. Besides, I have Shikamaru. We won't die. Trust in us just as we trust in you. And Cream, take care of him and take him to San." And Nada nodded with an absolute firmness, taking Naruto's hand and pulling him. "Come on, Naruto-kun. Sakura-chan is strong. Let's do our part." With a heavy heart, but a soul burning with resolution, Naruto nodded and followed Hinata into the darkness of the forest, leaving Sakura and Shikamaru to confront the enemy squad using their wits and the strategy of shadows and wire traps. Miles ahead, the forest was torn apart. Whole trees had been uprooted by Rennet. And Nada stopped dead in her tracks on a high branch, deactivating her Yakugan and panting slightly from the pressure in her eyes. "They are here," Whisper and Cream, pointing towards a steaming clearing. There stood Sasuke, paralyzed on the ground, consumed by Orochimaru's cursed seal, and completely at the mercy of a living nightmare. Gaara was no longer human. Half of his body was covered by a grotesque and demonic sand with a gigantic arm and tail. The Shukaku, the one-tailed demon, was waking up. Gaara raised his massive sand claw to crush Sasuke. Death. More blood to prove my existence. The sand monster roared. Before the claw could descend, a devastating kick, powered by the immense chakra of a furious Uzumaki, impacted the side of Gaara's demonic head, sending him crashing into an ancient tree. Naruto landed in front of Sasuke, the dust swirling around him. And Nada descended to his side, activating his Yakugan and adopting the offensive posture of his clan. Sasuke, coughing up blood, looked at them incredulously. What are they doing? Here. Run away. That thing is a monster. Naruto didn't back down. His blue eyes sharpened, and the fox instinct inside him recognized the presence of another Biju. He looked at Gaara, seeing in her eyes the same loneliness and madness that he himself had faced in his nightmares. We didn't run away, Sasuke, Naruto said, tracing the cross seal with his fingers. A layer of chakra beginning to envelop his body. This is our home. And if a monster wants to destroy him, he will have to go over me and the people I love. And Nada nodded, her pearl gaze shining with unwavering courage in the midst of the darkness. You are not alone, Naruto-kun. I'll cover your blind spots. The titanic clash between the Konoha Hinshiriki and the Sand Beast was about to unleash hell in the forest. The forest trembled under Gaara's oppressive and deranged murderous intent. His body, monstrously deformed by the compact sand of the Shukaku, creaked as a yellow eye with a cross-shaped pupil, fixed on Naruto and Hinata. More blood. Uzumaki Naruto, I will crush your existence. Gaara roared, raising her huge arm of sand. A massive, claw-shaped wave of sand pounced on them, shattering the trees in its path. Sasuke, paralyzed by the pain of the cursed seal, closed his eyes waiting for the end. But the end did not come to Keshikaiten. Celestial rotation of the 8 trigrams. And Nada did not back down. Planting his feet firmly on the ground, he released chakra from all his tenketsus and spun at breakneck speed. It was not a dome as big or as perfect as Neji's, but the strength of his will made up for the lack of experience. The huge sand claw crashed into the blue chakra whirlwind and was deflected sideways, saving Naruto and Sasuke at the last second. And Madara stopped, panting, but kept his fist posture soft, his pearl eyes fixed on the beast. Naruto-kun, the sand is alive and it responds to his chakra. My Byakugan sees the threads of energy. He attacks from the right, his defense is slower on that side, due to incomplete transformation. Naruto didn't waste a microsecond. Blindly trusting his companion's vision, he created a dozen shadow clones and charged towards Gaara's right flank. Uzumaki Naruto Renden. Burst of Uzumaki Naruto. The clones attacked in perfect synchronicity, throwing Gaara into the air before the real Naruto landed a downward kick to his face, severely cracking the sand mask. Gaara ran away in frustration. Finding himself cornered by pain and madness, he made the final decision. The sand of the entire forest began to swirl violently, lifting him up into the dark sky. False dream, Gaara intoned, clasping his hands together before plunging into a deep trance. The sand mountain took on the complete and colossal form of the Shukaku, the one-tailed demon. The entire forest was overshadowed by the shadow of the beast. With a deafening roar that threatened to burst the eardrums of those present, the demon woke up, free at last. I finally got out. I'm going to slaughter every living thing in this damn place. The Shukaku shouted, preparing a devastating gust of wind from his immense stomach. Naruto felt that fear was trying to paralyze him. It was a monster the size of a mountain. But then he felt a warm, firm hand entwine with his. And Madara was next to him, trembling slightly, but not taking a single step back. Tell me what to do, Naruto-kun, she said, her voice clear and determined in the midst of the storm. Naruto's fear evaporated, replaced by the burning will of fire. Hinata, hold on tight. Let's call a friend. Naruto bit his thumb, extracted the monstrous amount of Kurama's red chakra that was boiling inside, and hit the branch under his feet. Kyuchiyo Senjutsu. Invocation Jutsu. An explosion of white smoke, as colossal as Shukaku himself, erupted in the forest. When the demon's air-piercing bullet impacted, it slammed into the cold steel of a gigantic katana. Gamabunta, the Toad Chief, appeared in all his glory, with Naruto and Jimata over his head. The huge toad took a puff on his pipe, evaluating the sand beast with annoyance. A sand raccoon. You've got guts, you brats. Hang on, this is going to get ugly. The battle of the titans shattered the landscape. Gamabunta launched water bullets that turned the sand into heavy mud, while the Shukaku shot gusts of hurricane-force wind. On the toad's head, Naruto and Jimata were holding each other with chakra on their souls. Chief Toad, we need to wake up the boy in front of you. Naruto shouted over the din. If we wake him up, the jutsu breaks. That thing is sneaky. I'll have to grab it, but I'll only be able to hold it for a few seconds. Gamabunta replied, shrouding the Shukaku and clutching his mud arms with all his might. Now, Naruto-kun. Hinata shouted. Both of them jumped from Gamabunta's head, flying through the air directly towards the Shukaku's forehead, where Gaara's sleeping body was half peeking out. But the sand reacted, forming sharp spears to impale them in the air. And Nata did not hesitate. Channeling all his chakra into his palms, he began punching the air, projecting invisible chakra needles that shattered the sand spears before they touched Naruto. I swear Sosuken. Smooth step lion cufflinks. An early form of chakra in the shape of blue lions enveloped Hinata's hands. He landed right in front of Gaara and hit the sand seal that tied him to the beast. The soft fist interrupted the Shukaku's chakra network for a vital second, loosening the armor. It's all yours, Naruto, she shouted, pulling away. Naruto, wrapped in a thin layer of the Kyugi's red chakra, landed a devastating headbutt directly on Gaara's face. The impact broke the hardened sand and woke up Suna's Hinshiriki all at once. The false dream was broken. The immense Shukaku let out a howl of fury before crumbling into a harmless sand mountain. Naruto, Hinata and Gaara fell into the void, crashing to the forest floor. Gamabunta disappeared in a cloud of smoke, his duty fulfilled. Naruto, completely chakraless and bleeding, crawled across the earth towards Gaara. The red-haired man was paralyzed, his eyes filled with genuine terror. Why is that? Why do you fight so hard for them? Gaara stammered. Naruto looked at him, and then looked back, where Hinata was getting up, bruised but alive, running towards him. She thought of Sakura, fighting alone somewhere in the forest, to buy them time. Because I was alone, just like you, Gaara, Naruto said, his voice husky, but full of an absolute truth. But I found people who accepted me. People I love. And when you have someone you want to protect with all your soul, you become truly strong. They are my strength. Gaara was stunned, his ideals of blood and loneliness shattered by the light of the boy from Konoha. Minutes later, Tamari and Kankuro arrived, terrifying. And they took his brother back to the border. Naruto let them go. And Mata came to Naruto, falling to his knees next to him. Not caring about the dust or the blood, she hugged him tightly, hiding her face in his neck. You did it, Naruto-kun. You made it. Naruto hugged her back, resting his chin on her head. We did it, Hinata. Your Byakugan saved us. Before they could say more, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the silence of the clearing. Sakura Aruno and Shikamaru Nara emerged from the thicket. Sakura was covered in scratches, her clothes were torn in several places, and she was breathing hard. But her green eyes were shining with the light of victory. He had survived the honins of the sound by using traps, chakra control, and pure intelligence alongside the Nara. Seeing Naruto and Hinata alive, Sakura let her guilt drop. And he ran towards them. She let herself fall on the grass, joining in the embrace. She wrapped her arms around Naruto and Hinata, crying tears of pure relief. Idiots! They don't know how afraid I was of never seeing them again, Sakura sobbed, squeezing them tightly. Naruto smiled, wrapping his arms around both girls. The pain of his injuries disappeared. In the midst of the destruction of the invasion, with the village smoking in the distance, Naruto Uzumaki realized. that he had the whole world in his arms. I promised you, Sakura-chan, Hinata. Naruto murmured, kissing Sakura's forehead and then Hinata's. I will always come back to you. Always. The days following the invasion of Orochimaru were tinged with mourning. The third cage, Irizen Sarutobi, had fallen in combat. The village was in ruins, and the sky seemed to cry forever in the form of a cold drizzle. After the Hokage's funeral, dressed in rigorous black mourning, Naruto, Sakura, and Jimata walked away from the crowd. They walked in silence to the top of the monument to the Hokages, sitting on the head of the fourth Hokage. The village stretched out before them, wounded but still standing. Sakura took Naruto's left hand, and Jimata took his right hand. They intertwined their fingers, forming an unbreakable chain of human warmth in the face of the cold of death. The village is going to need to be rebuilt, Sakura said, her voice firm and mature. Kakashi-sensei says that times will be dark from now on. Akatsuki. Orochimaru. They will come for us. And Mata nodded, squeezing the blonde man's hand. Pay, but we don't have to be afraid. As long as we are together, we will become stronger. I'll talk to my father. I will no longer allow myself to be pushed aside. I will train until I am worthy of protecting them. Naruto looked at his two sons. The girl who used to only cry for Sasuke now had the fire of a leader in her green eyes. And the shy, stuttering heiress now had the courage of a lion in her pearl eyes. Jiraiya-sensei offered to take me with him to look for the fifth Hokage, Naruto revealed, looking at the horizon. He said he will train me on the way. I have to go away for a while. Sakura and Jimata looked at him, surprised, but neither tried to stop him. They understood the weight he was carrying as a Hinshiriki. Go, Sakura said, resting her head on Naruto's left shoulder. Learn everything you confirm that Sannin. We will not be left behind. I will look for someone to teach me in medical injutsu. I promise that the next time you get hurt, I will heal you. And I will perfect the soft fist, Hinata added, resting her head on Naruto's right shoulder. So that no one will approach you from behind again. Naruto smiled, a bright smile that cut through the sadness of the day. He gave them each a gentle kiss, sealing the pact. Wait for me. I will become so strong that no one in this world will be able to touch them. I swear on my life. The bond was sealed in stone, blood, and promise. The legend of the Hinshiriki and his two queens was just beginning, and the ninja world was not prepared for the storm that they were going to unleash. The trip with Jiraiya was not a vacation. Far from the comfort of Konoha, Naruto was subjected to a hellish training, designed to teach him the pinnacle of chakra and Rasengan form control. The legacy of the fourth Hokage was a devastating technique that required absolute concentration. 4 weeks, Naruto popped water balloons and rubber balls until his hands bled and his muscles screamed in agony. There were nights when fatigue almost overwhelmed him, lying on the cold wooden floor of some cheap inn. But then, he would close his eyes and remember the warmth of two hands intertwined with his. He remembered Sakura's green eyes, full of fierce determination, and Hinata's pearl eyes shining with a blind faith in him. I can't give up. If I don't master this, I won't be able to protect them, he was saying to himself, getting up once more in the darkness, to continue molding the rotating chakra in his palm. That unshakable conviction was what allowed him to not only master the Rasengan in record time, but to use it to shatter Kabuto Yakuse's abdomen during the brutal Sannin showdown. Naruto's determination to protect Tsunade with his own body, refusing to die until he fulfilled his promises, broke the cynicism of the legendary medical Kunoichi, finally convincing her to assume the mantle of fifth Hokage. Meanwhile, in Konoha, the promise had not fallen on deaf ears. Sakura Aruno stood in front of the newly appointed Hokage's office door. His hands were shaking slightly, but his gaze was hard as diamond. Upon entering, he ignored Shizune and the piles of paperwork, planting himself directly in front of Tsunade's desk. Fifth Hokage. Sakura declared, making a deep bow, please take me as your apprentice. My chakra control is the best of my generation, but I lack offensive and medical power. I want to. No, I need to get strong, to protect the people I love. I won't be a burden anymore. Tsunade, her chin resting on her clasped hands, assessed the pink-haired girl. She saw the fire in his green eyes, a fire identical to that of the blonde brat who had given her hope back. Tsunade smiled sideways. Medical training is hell, girl. If you cry or complain even once, I will kick you out of my office. Are you ready to bleed? Nativist, Shishu teacher. Sakura replied, sealing her fate. On the other side of the village, in the majestic Iga clan compound, a silent revolution was taking place. Yasi Iga, the strict clan leader, watched the dojo from the shadows. In the center, Imada and Neji were facing each other in a training match. But something was fundamentally different, and Nada was no longer backing down. He no longer hesitated before throwing a punch. His Yakugan was activated, his veins marked, and his smooth fist movements flowed with a lethal grace and precision that rivaled that of his cousin Genius. Neji launched a palm strike straight at Inada's chest, waiting for her to block and step back as usual. But Inada did not block. He slipped under her guard with a fluid movement, channeling a massive amount of chakra in his hands. That took the form of two roaring lion heads. Judo Sosoken. Smooth step lion cufflinks. With a swift turn, Inada hit Neji's shoulder, interrupting his chakra flow with such force that the secondary branch Genius was thrown several meters back, falling backwards onto the tatami. The silence in the dojo was absolute. Yasi took a step forward, her eyes wide with surprise. Neji slowly got up, rubbing his numb shoulder, and dedicated to his cousin. A smile full of genuine respect. You have become terrifying, Inada-sama. Inada deactivated her Yakugan, breathing hard but with a proud smile on her face. She looked at her father, not with submission, but with the firmness of the future leader of the clan. I won't run away anymore, father. I will train until this power is absolute. I have someone to protect. The next 3 years were a crucible of fire and pain for all three. Naruto traveled the world with Jiraiya, mastering the basics of the chakra and facing threats of East rank, forging his body and mind to resist the immense power of the nine-tailed fox. Sakura became the scourge of the Konoha hospital, mastering medical ninjutsu to the point of perfection, and acquiring a monstrous physical strength capable of splitting the earth in two. And Hinata, training tirelessly, with Meiji and Ashi, perfected the absolute defense and the lethal attack of the lion twin fists, becoming the most lethal kunoichi of the Iga clan. During those 3 long years, Sakura and Hinata became inseparable. They shared lunches, workouts, and, on lonely nights, supported each other. They read the few letters that Jiraiya sent, looking between the lines for any news about his hyperactive blonde. The love they shared for Naruto didn't divide them, it united them into a brotherhood of steel. They both knew that when he came back, the world would shake. And finally, the day came. The wind was blowing gently over the immense green gates of Konoha. 2 figures in traveling cloaks crossed the threshold. Hiraiya sighed, stretching out his arms, but next to him, Naruto Uzumaki stopped in his tracks. The short, scandalous boy in the garish orange jacket had disappeared. In his place was a tall, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed shinobi. He was wearing a new black and orange jacket, dark shinobi pants, and carried a scroll tied to his waist. His blue eyes scanned the village, not with childish awe, but with the tactical assessment of an experienced warrior. Konoha. Nothing has changed. Naruto exclaimed, though his voice was deeper and more resonant. He felt the ground beneath his feet, breathing in the air of his home. Before Hirai could already suggest going for ramen, a deafening crash. He shook the lamp post closest to them. Naruto didn't blink. With a blurry motion, he raised his left arm and injected a minimal amount of chakra into his forearm, blocking a blow that would have shattered the wall of the academy. There she was. Sakura Aruno, dressed in her sleeveless red blouse, black gloves and shorts, with her fist pressed against Naruto's forearm. The ground under the kunoichi's boots had cracked from the sheer kinetic force of the jump. Sakura looked up, her green eyes shining with a mixture of fierceness and admiration. Absolute duration. Your reflexes have improved, you idiot. 3 years ago, that blow would have sent you flying to the Ukage's monument. Naruto let out a deep and genuine laugh, lowering his arm to grab Sakura's hand. And you keep hitting like a monster, Sakura-chan. You look beautiful. The blush covered the medical Kunoichi's cheeks, but before she could respond, a gentle gust of wind fluttered around her. Naruto-kun. Naruto slowly turned around. A few meters away, standing with an elegant Tiriya, I was Inat and Ga. Her dark blue hair had grown to her waist. He was wearing a lilac and blue jacket that enhanced his mature Kunoichi figure, and his posture radiated a lethal calm that only true taijutsu masters possessed. But her pearl eyes were full of tears. Contained. Naruto didn't think twice about it. He dropped his backpack, shortened the distance in 3 strides, and wrapped Hinata in his arms, lifting her off the ground with a twist that wrung a crystalline and surprised laugh from the girl. Hinata. I missed you so much, Naruto muttered. In her ear, her voice trembling for the first time from the pent-up emotion of 1,000 days of absence. He lowered her carefully, and without letting go, he extended his other arm towards Sakura, drawing her into the embrace. The 2 Kunoichi clung to him, hiding their faces in the fabric of his new jacket. Inhaling the scent of wind, road dust and home that he always radiated. Jiraiya was watching them from a safe distance, a nostalgic smile curling his lips, remembering his own team in his youth. You returned his Suri cure, his voice choked on the shoulder of the blonde. I promised you, didn't I? Naruto replied, pulling away enough to look at both of them, his blue eyes shining with an unshakable love. I will no longer be the one who always needs to be saved. Now it's the 3 of us against the world. The meeting was sweet, but the ninja world did not forgive. The long pauses. Just a day after their return, Tsunade summoned them to her office. The news fell like a steel guillotine. Akatsuki has made his move, the 5th Hokage announced, his face hardened by the strain. Gaara, the 5th Hunt, has been singled out. Kidnapped by 2 of its members. The arena has asked us for official help. Naruto clenched his fists. Gaara, the first friend he had made among the Hinchirikis, the boy he had saved from darkness, was in the hands of the monsters, who wanted to rip their soul out. I'm going to get him, Grandpa. The Tsunade sentenced Naruto, her voice devoid of any jokes, resonating with a tactical coldness. That surprised Kakashi, who was standing next to them. I won't let those bastards get away with this. Tsunade nodded. The original Team 7 has been dismantled following Sasuke's defection. Therefore, we will form a new elite squad. Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Aruno, and Mata Igika almost attack. His mission is to track down Akatsuki, rescue Gaara, and eliminate the threat. They're leaving in an hour. At the gates of Konoha, the new team gathered. Naruto adjusted his black gloves, crossing glances with Sakura and Hinata. They weren't scary Jennies anymore. They were the pinnacle of medical ninjutsu, absolute vision, and raw destructive power. Hinata, your Byakugan will be our eyes. Sakura-chan, you will be our guarantee of survival. And I will destroy whatever gets in our way. Naruto laid out the plan without hesitation, assuming the natural leadership he had forged on his journey. And Hinata nodded, her Yakugan instantly activating, the veins marking around her pearly eyes. I've got you covered, Naruto-kun. 10 kilometers around, nothing will escape my vision. Sakura banged her black glove-covered fists with a predatory smile. Whoever hurts Gaara or us, I will break every bone in his body before I heal him to break it again. So, putting down his orange book, he smiled under his mask. They have become monsters? Orochimaru, Akatsuki. They have no idea what they just unleashed. The journey towards the arena was a blur of pure speed. Along the way, they were confronted by Itachi Uchiha, a sacrificial clone created by Akatsuki. The battle demonstrated the evolution of the trio. While Kakashi was fighting hand-to-hand, and Mata used his 360-degree vision to override the Sharingan's illusions. That required eye contact, guiding Naruto's movements. Sakura destroyed the terrain to knock Lucia off balance, allowing Naruto to connect a flawless Odama Rasengan, Great Rasengan Ball. That shattered the clone in seconds. Upon arriving at Akatsuki's lair in the river country, an immense sealed rock blocked the entrance. A 5-point stamp analyzed Kakashi. We will have to remove them simultaneously, but they are scattered over a radius of 1 kilometer. There's no time for hide-and-seek games, Sakura interrupted him, stepping forward and cracking her knuckles. He looked at Naruto, and then at Hinata. Hinata, locate the exact chakra flow behind the rock. If I strike blindly, the seal will repel my force. And Hinata nodded, focusing her Yakugan on the center of the massive rock. The core of the seal is 2 meters to the left of the center, Sakura-chan. If you inject pure chakra there, you will destabilize the matrix. Sakura did not hesitate. He channeled an absurd amount of chakra into his right fist, which glowed with an intense green and blue aura. Shanaro. Sakura's blow hit the exact spot indicated by Hinata. The sound was like the explosion of a volcano. The massive physical force, combined with the alteration of the chakra flow, shattered the millenary rock into a million pieces. The 5-point seal was broken by pure gross overload. The smoke from the explosion filled the inner cavern. When it disappeared, it revealed to Akatsuki members of Hidara and Sasori, sitting on Gaara's body and inert. Naruto felt his blood boil. His blue eyes flashed with an icy fury, and a thin layer of red chakra began to manifest around his body. So you are the freaks who dared to touch my friend. Naruto's voice echoed in the cavern, deep and loaded with a murderous intention that made even Sasori, inside his puppet, stand on guard. The true power of Konoha's golden trio was about to unleash hell on Akatsuki. The cavern echoed with the echo of Deidara's laughter. The blonde Akatsuki bomber found out. Lazuli on Gaara's inert body, he molded clay into her palms with a dizzying speed. Just look at you, Hinshiriki. You're fuming like a kettle about to boil, teased Hidara, throwing a small clay figure to the ground that instantly grew. Until he became a giant bird. Art requires a bigger stage. I'm taking my trophy to heaven. The bird engulfed Gaara's body and shot out into the tunnel of light on the roof of the cavern. Naruto didn't scream. The air around him became heavy, dense, and charged with a murderous intent that made the stalactites on the ceiling vibrate. A layer of red chakra, boiling and pure, enveloped his body, manifesting the fox's first tail. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto roared, his scarlet eyes fixed on the hole in the ceiling. Go, Naruto. I got your back. Kakashi uncovered his Sharingan and darted after him in a blur of speed. Before disappearing, Naruto turned his head for a microsecond towards Sakura and Hinata. They didn't need words. In that brief exchange of glances, the message was clear: survive. I see them on the other side. The two Kunoichi nodded, their faces hardening with an absolute lethality. In the center of the cavern, the Iruko puppet, controlled by Sasori of the Red Sand, let out a mechanical clicking sound. Next to the shattered entrance, the elderly Chio, who had guided the team from the arena. Lina took a step forward, unfolding summoning scrolls. Girls from Konoha, this is my grandson. He is a monster who has turned hundreds of people into human puppets. I'll take care of him. He began to squeak, his voice heavy with regret. But Sakura and Jimata got in the way, standing shoulder to shoulder in front of the arena legend. With all due respect, Grandma Chilo, Sakura said, adjusting her black gloves with a threatening snap. We didn't stay in the rear. Naruto is risking his life out there, and we are going to destroy. To chop this wooden puppet into pieces to reunite with him. And Nada activated her Yakugan, the veins in her temples marking as her 360-degree vision. Scanned every joint of Iruko and the invisible threads that controlled him. That Sasori is not safe inside that breastplate. He analyzed and killed with a cold voice. Your chakra flow is dense. Sakura-chan, the iron tail of the puppet, is coated with a lethal poison. I'll trace his path. You take care of the brute force. Sasori let out a metallic laugh from inside Iruko. Insolent brats. I will turn their beautiful bodies into my next collection of eternal art. Iruko's huge scorpion-shaped tail shot out towards them at a speed imperceptible to the normal human eye. It was an attack designed to impale and poison in a split second. Up and to the left, Sakura. Hinata ordered, her Yakugan processing the attack in slow motion. Sakura did not hesitate a millimeter. He ducked, dodging the lethal barb by a hair, and channeled his entire chakra into his right fist. Using the momentum of his legs, he jumped directly towards the heavy exposed iron tail. Shonaro? Sakura's blow hit the steel of the puppet. The blast wave of the pure force shattered the tail into 1,000 pieces of useless shrapnel, sending Iruko crashing into the cavern wall. The breastplate cracked and shattered, revealing the true form of Sasori, a red-haired boy. With a face that hadn't aged a single day in 20 years, his own body turned into a lethal puppet. Sasori, frowning at the pink-haired girl's monstrous strength, unrolled a scroll from her back. They survived the shell. Let's see how they deal with the third hunt. A new puppet emerged, floating in the air. The air became heavy. Sasori released the Jitten element magnetism, unleashing a massive shower of iron sand in the form of microscopic needles, which covered the entire roof of the cavern. Iron rain. Sasori shouted. Millions of lethal needles rained down on them. Sakura gritted her teeth, preparing to hit the ground and create a hide-and-seek shield, but it wasn't necessary. And Nada stepped forward, standing between Sakura and the death that was falling from the sky. He released chakra from every tenketsu in his body, spinning with a speed and grace that would have taken Neiji's breath away. Akeshi Kaiten. Celestial rotation of the 8 trigrams. A huge rotating dome of pure blue chakra was formed around both Kunoichi. The iron sand crashed into Inada's barrier, being relentlessly repelled in all directions, shattering the walls of the cavern, but leaving the 2 girls intact in the center. As the turn stopped, Inada gasped slightly. But he maintained his stance. We will not let you touch us, the Iga declared, her hands suddenly wrapped in the immense blue chakra of her twin lions. Sakura-chan, the chakra threads that control the iron sand come from your fingers. If I cut the connection, the sand will fall, cover me. Roger that. Sakura hit the ground with both hands. A massive crack opened up in the cavern, lifting up stone blocks the size of houses. Sakura kicked the giant debris towards Sasori, forcing him to evade and break his concentration. Taking advantage of the chaos, Mata slipped in. Among the shadows of the falling rocks, moving with the silent lethality of his clan. Sasori barely saw her coming. When she tried to redirect the iron sand towards her, Nada was already inside her guard. I swear, Sosuken. Nada did not aim at the hunting puppet. He pointed at the empty air between Sasori's hands and the puppet. His lion-like fists struck the invisible chakra threads. The soft fist, designed to devour and block chakra, instantly dissolved Sasori's connection. The puppet of the third hunt fell inert to the ground and the iron sand. He collapsed like useless dust. Sasori, genuinely surprised by the ability of the girl's pearl eyes to see and cut her threads, opened the compartment in her chest. They are not ordinary Kunoichi. Read secret technique appearance of the 100 puppets. An entire army of 100 puppets armed with poison swords flooded the cavern, ready to overwhelm them by sheer numerical superiority. Chilo tried to summon his 10 white puppets, but Sakura and Jimata were already on the move. It was a perfectly choreographed dance of death. Inada used her twin lions to cut the chakra networks of entire groups of puppets, disarming them before they could attack. Sakura, moving in the blind spots that Inada marked for her telepathically with hand signals, acted as a living demolition hammer, shredding wooden bodies left and right. Its core. Inada suddenly shouted, her Yakugan focusing on the fleshy cylinder on Sasori's left chest, which was trying to move from one wooden body to another. It's the only thing alive she has left. That's his weak point. Sakura nodded, her green gaze burning. Inada, throw me. Inada did not hesitate. She channeled chakra into her hands and grabbed Sakura by the boot, spinning on herself to gain momentum, before launching her companion like a human projectile at supersonic speed straight at the real Sasori. Sasori, watching the pink-haired beast fly towards him, prepared poisoned blades from his sleeves. But Inada was not finished. To that vacuum palm of the 8 trigrams. A compressed air and chakra bullet shot out of Inada's hand, impacting Sasori's right arm and deflecting his attack. In the crucial millisecond, Sakura has arrived. With his fist charged with all the chakra he had stored in his reserve, and with the memory of Naruto's promise burning in his chest, he connected a direct hit to the center of Sasori's chest. This is for getting in our way. The blow shattered Sasori's wooden body into microscopic splinters. The impact was so brutal that the wall of the cavern behind him completely collapsed, opening a gap to the outer sky. Sasori's vital core fell to the ground, crushed and lifeless. The legendary puppet master had been defeated by the overwhelming strength and absolute vision of the two queens of Konoha. Sakura landed heavily, breathing heavily. And Nada ran to her, supporting her by the shoulders. They looked at each other, dirty, filthy, but without a single poison scratch. They had triumphed. "We did it," Sakura-chan whispered, and Cream, with a smile of pure relief. "We're not done yet. We need to catch up with our blonde idiot," Sakura replied, straightening up. Meanwhile, in the forest outside, the chaos was absolute. Naruto, wrapped in the fox's two-tailed cloak, was chasing Deidara's clay bird. The pain of seeing Gaara inert had broken down her barriers. Kakashi, realizing that Naruto was about to lose control of his humanity, activated his Maeki Sharingan. Kamui. The space around Deidara's arm became distorted, ripping off his limb in another dimension and forcing him into a nosedive. Naruto, moving like a rabid beast, intercepted the clay bird, destroying it and retrieving Gaara's body. He landed in a forest clearing, his chakra cloak seething, the wrath of Kurama threatening to unleash the third tail to annihilate Deidara, who was running away in despair. But before the third tail could form, Naruto looked at Gaara's pale and lifeless face. The fury froze. The pain went through him like a sword of ice. The Hinchiriki of the arena, the boy who had found the light thanks to him, was dead. The Shukaku had been extracted from him. I had arrived late. The red chakra faded away, leaving a human Naruto, who fell to his knees on the grass, hugging his friend's body. The tears began to fall freely by her cheeks. The rustling of the branches announced the arrival of her companions. Sakura and Jimata burst into the clearing, followed by the old woman Chilo. Seeing Naruto on his knees, crying over Gaara, both Kunoichi felt their hearts break. There were no words of comfort. "You were doing." Sakura ran to him, falling to her knees beside him and wrapping her arms around his trembling shoulders, resting her forehead against the blond man's temple. And Nada knelt on the other side, taking Naruto's hand with both hands, interlacing his fingers tightly, transmitting all the warmth to him. "Of your soul through your chakra. I was late." Sakura and Cream. "I couldn't save him," Naruto sobbed, his voice broken with guilt. "No, Naruto. You did everything you could. You fought for him. That's what matters," Sakura whispered to him, gently kissing his tear-covered cheek. And Nada squeezed his hand. "In Naruto-kun, Gaara-sama knew that you were fighting for him. He was never alone in the end. You saved him from obscurity 3 years ago." Old Lady Chilo watched the scene. He saw the pure and unconditional love that surrounded the Hinchiriki of Konoha, the same boy who had changed the fate of his village. Feeling the weight of his own sins for having sealed the Shukaku in Gaara, Chilo made a decision. He slowly approached and placed his wrinkled hands on Gaara's chest. A bright blue chakra aura began to emanate from her. "The Kisha Tensei. My technique of reincarnation. I will give my life so he can live," Chio announced, her voice serene. Naruto looked up, surprised. "Will he give his life?" "No, I won't let anyone else die." The fox inside grunted. "Brat, if you inject her with my massive chakra, while she performs the jutsu, you could stabilize the vital flow of both of us. But it will hurt like hell." Naruto didn't hesitate. He gently released Gaara and put his hands on the old lady Chilo's. The immense and warm golden chakra, Dekulama, purified by Naruto's intention, began to flow through the old woman's network, feeding the reincarnation jutsu without exhausting his life force. Sakura and Hinata, understanding the immense effort Naruto was making, did not move away. Sakura put her hand on Naruto's shoulder, transferring his medical chakra to heal the muscle tears that the fox chakra was causing, while Hinata rested her hand on his back, injecting her soft fist chakra to stabilize his inner network. It was a perfect connection. Absolute power, perfect healing, and impeccable stabilization. Cable. Under the golden and green light of the trio's combined chakra and the Chilo technique, Gaara's heart flipped over. The hunter opened his eyes slowly, breathing in the cold forest air. He found himself surrounded not by assassins or monsters, but by Naruto's tearful face, the smile, Sakura's relieved laugh, Hinata's compassionate gaze, and Chilo's lively presence. The rescue mission had been a resounding success. Gaara was alive, Chilo had survived thanks to Naruto's chakra, and Akatsuki had suffered a humiliating defeat. As they walked back towards the hidden village of the sand, flanked by hundreds of Suna shinobi who had come to the rescue of their cage, Naruto walked in the center. Sakura was holding her right hand, and Jimata was holding his left hand. The desert sun was rising on the horizon, bathing the three of them in a warm golden light. Naruto looked at them both, feeling a peace that defied the horrors of the coming war. "Thank you." At 2 o'clock. If they hadn't been there, I think the darkness would have consumed me. Sakura smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "That's what we're here for, you idiot. We are your shield and your sword." And Nata nodded, squeezing his hand firmly. "And we will always bring you back to the light, Naruto-kun." The bond of the golden trio of Konoha had become unbreakable, and the entire world was about to witness the storm of the three suns. In the face of the impending apocalypse, the return to Konoha brought an ephemeral peace, just a sigh before plunging back into the brutal reality of the shinobi world. Akatsuki kept moving in the shadows, hunting Hinshirikis, and Naruto knew that his standard Rasengan was no longer enough. To protect his two sons, I needed to bring the legacy of the fourth eye to its ultimate form, to combine the manipulation of the form with the manipulation of the nature of the chakra. The training at the waterfalls with Kakashi and Yamato started. Discovering that his affinity was the wind was just the first step. The real hell was to condense that wind into a rotating sheet at the cellular level. Using thousands of shadow clones, Naruto accumulated the experience of weeks of training in a single day. But the physical toll was devastating. The microscopic wind needles shattered the chakra networks of his own arms. But Naruto wasn't alone at that training camp. Sakura Aruno was there, frowning from concentration, and her hands glowing with the intense green chakra of the mystic palm. As soon as a clone disappeared, or the real Naruto fell to his knees in pain, she was at his side, building the damaged tissues at a frantic pace. "Don't you dare give up, you idiot," Sakura growled, wiping the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "Without interrupting the healing. I will heal every cell you break. You concentrate on mastering that wind." On the other side, Hinata kept her Yakugan activated to the maximum, her pearl eyes fixed on the chakra sphere in Naruto's hands. His absolute vision was the key that Kakashi could not offer. "The outer rotation collides with the core," Naruto-kun indicated Hinata, in a calm and analytical voice. "You are injecting the wind chakra evenly, but you need it to spiral towards the center. Compress the flow more in your left hand, as if you were shaping the thread of a kunai." Guided by Hinata's millimeter vision, and sustained by Sakura's inexhaustible medical ninjutsu, Naruto shaped the technique that he was humanly impossible for a single shinobi. With a deafening chirp reminiscent of the song of 1,000 birds and the howling of a hurricane, the blue chakra sphere took the form of an immense wind shuriken. Tonra's in shuriken. Naruto shouted, throwing the technique against a rock formation. The impact was not a conventional explosion, it was a sphere of microscopic annihilation that disintegrated the rock into invisible dust. Naruto fell on his back on the grass, exhausted, but with a triumphant smile. Sakura and Jimata dropped down beside him, breathing hard. The blond man stretched out his arms, drawing them to his chest. "We did it," Naruto whispered, looking at the blue sky. "This technique is ours." Of the three, Sakura leaned her head on the blonde's shoulder, closing her eyes. "You'd better use it like crazy. My medical chakra has a limit, Naruto." And Nata, leaning on his other shoulder, intertwined her fingers with his. "It's a beautiful jutsu, Naruto-kun. Hey, but also very dangerous." The happiness of the triumph, however, was destined to be shattered. Weeks later, the sky over Konoha turned a leaden gray. A cold drizzle began to fall on the village when the great wise toad, Fukasaku, appeared at the office of the Hokage. He had an encrypted message on his back, and a piece of news that chilled the blood of everyone present. "Hiraya, The legendary Sannin, Naruto's godfather and teacher, had fallen in combat in the Hidden Rain village. After discovering the secret of Akatsuki's leader, Pain. When Tsunade broke the news to him, Naruto's world stopped. The sound of the rain was silenced by a dull hum in the world. In his ears. She didn't scream, she didn't cry at that moment. He simply turned around and left the office, walking like a ghost through the wet streets of Konoha. That night, Naruto sat on a wooden bench in front of a closed shop, holding a popsicle of ice that was slowly melting. Mind dripping over the puddle under his feet. The pain in his chest was a dark abyss that threatened to devour him. Hirai was already the closest thing to a father I had ever had. The sound of soft footsteps interrupted the drizzle. Naruto didn't look up, but he felt the familiar warmth before he was even touched. Sakura sat on his left and Jimata on his right. Neither of them said a word. They knew that motivational speeches were useless in the face of the loss of a parent. Sakura gently took the melted ice popsicle out of his hands and set it aside. Then, she passed an arm around Naruto's shoulders, drawing him towards her, sinking her face into the blonde's neck. And Nata, on the other side, took her cold and trembling hands between hers, pressing them against her own chest, transmitting to her the firm beating of her heart. The ID that finally broke. Naruto let out a heartbreaking sob, leaning forward, his tears mingling with the rain. He cried with the fury of a child who has lost his world, but he was not alone in the darkness. Sakura cried with him, stroking his blonde hair, sharing the weight of his agony. Let him out, Naruto. We're here. We're not going anywhere. And Nata leaned her forehead against Naruto's arm, her tears wetting the sleeve of her jacket. Master Hirai already loved you, Naruto-kun. And we love you too. We won't let you carry this on your own. They stayed like this 4 hours in the rain, 3 souls fused into one pain, holding each other, until the tears dried up, and left in their wake a cold and unshakable resolution. At dawn, Naruto got up from the bench. His blue eyes were reddened, but the abyss had disappeared, replaced by an icy blue fire. He looked at the 2 kunoichi who had stayed by his side all night, their clothes soaked, but their gazes full of devotion. Pain is coming for me, Naruto said, his voice low and devoid of any hesitation. And if he comes, he will destroy Konoha. I need to become stronger. The old toad said that he will teach me senjutsu on Mount Meiboku. Sakura stood up, adjusting her wet gloves. Go, Naruto. We'll crack the code that Hirai Yasama left behind. And we will prepare the village for what is coming. Hinata nodded, activating her Yakugan for a second, showing that she was ready for war. No one will touch this village while you are gone. We will protect the home to which you must return. Naruto took Sakura's face with one hand and Hinata's with the other, kissed Sandolas deeply, one after the other, sealing the promise of his imminent revenge and his return. Wait for me. I'll be back before that false god touches the village. Days later, while Naruto mastered the natural energy on Toad Mountain, achieving a synchronization perfect that even surpassed that of Jiraiya, the sky overwhelmed Saraspo. 6 figures in black robes and red clouds descended on the village hidden from the leaf. The 6 roads of pain had come to claim the 9 tails. Chaos erupted instantly. Massive explosions of monstrous summons and gravitational repulsions pulverized entire buildings. At the Konoha hospital, Sakura was leading the medical defense. Using his monstrous strength, he shattered one of Pain's giant centipede summons with a single punch, saving DC. Patient dinners. Katsuyu summoned Sakura, dividing the huge healing slug to attach to each injured villager. Using the force of 100 seal to supply medical chakra on a massive scale, taking on the role of Tsunade, who was exhausted protecting civilians. In the center of the village, Imada and Gaba and Wash a dance of death. Together with his father and Ineji, he formed an impenetrable wall. When the Asura Road launched a barrage of missiles at a civilian shelter, Imada got in the way. Akeshi Kaiten. The blue whirlwind repelled the missiles, causing explosions in the air. With a tactical coolness learned from his trainings, Inada used the gentle step lion twin fists to paralyze the mechanical joints of the Asura path, dismembering it before it could regenerate. But the leader of Akatsuki, the Way of Eve, levitated over the geometric center of Konoha. Seeing that the resistance of the village was fierce, and that the Hinchiriki was not present, Pain raised his hands. Know the pain. Shinra-tensei. Divine Judgment. A gravitational repulsion of apocalyptic proportions wiped Konoha off the map in a second, turning the bustling village into an immense smoking crater. Sakura, covered by Katsuyu, and Hinata, having used the celestial rotation to the maximum to survive the impact together with their family, rose from the rubble. They looked around, their hearts shrinking with terror as they saw their home pulverized. In the center of the crater, Eva's path landed, preparing to execute the survivors. But the air stopped. An explosion of white smoke, as vast as a mountain, erupted at the epicenter of the destruction. The wind blew violently, clearing the fog. There, standing on the heads of the three immense warrior toads, was Naruto Uzumaki. He wore an imposing red cape with black flames on the hem, carrying a giant scroll on his back. The orange marks of the senjutsu surrounded his eyes, whose pupils now had the form of horizontal slits. His eyes were no longer celestial, they were of an intense and divine golden. The wise man had arrived. Naruto scanned the crater. His senses, amplified by the natural energy, detected the chakra signatures of Sakura and Jin. Kill immediately. Feeling that they were both alive, a microscopic smile of pure relief crossed her hardened face. Pain looked at him expressionlessly. You're finally here, Hinchiriki. Naruto unrolled the scroll from his back, crossing his arms with an authority that left all the survivors breathless. I didn't come here to talk about your stupid pain. I came to annihilate you for daring to touch the village of my queens. The Konoha crater became the scene of the most monumental battle the shinobi world had witnessed since the time of Esirama Senju. Naruto Uzumaki, infused with the natural energy of Mount Meiboku, did not waste a single second on empty speeches. His speed in the Sage mode was imperceptible. In the blink of an eye, he shattered the road to Sura with a single punch, reducing his mechanized body to scrap metal, before he could take aim at Tsu. From there, it was a demonstration of pure power, tactics, and mastery of the elements. Using the Kawazuka Might Kata of the Toads, Naruto hit his enemies with the invisible natural energy that surrounded him, knocking down the Gekido path without even physically touching it. He summoned the shadow clones he had left, gathering energy on the mountain, keeping his Sage mode active, and unleashing his masterpiece, the Raisin-Shuriken Effetin. The immense wind blade traversed the battlefield, expanding into a sphere of annihilation that disintegrated the human path at the cellular level. From a distance, hidden behind the rubble of the academy, Sakura and Hinata watched the battle with their hearts pounding wildly. It's amazing. His chakra is so massive and perfect that he almost doesn't look human, Whisper and Cream, with the Yakugan activated, seeing the golden flow of the natural energy running through Naruto's veins. Sakura clenched her fists, the green light of her medical chakra beating in her palms. But he's fighting six at once. The Way of Eve. The leader. He has regained his power. Sakura's intuition was sadly correct. Pain, having regained his ability to manipulate gravity, changed the course of the combat. With the Banch Tenin universal attraction, he dragged Naruto through the air, nullifying his offensive. The Gekido path absorbed his Rasengan, and in one swift and lethal move, Pain crashed Naruto against the stone floor. Before the blonde could react, the Akatsuki leader pulled out thick chakra interrupt bars, mercilessly thrusting them into Naruto's wrists, ankles, and back. The black bars, conductors of the Rinnegan chakra, paralyzed the elemental network of the Sage, nailing him to the ground like a martyr. Naruto grunted in pain, spitting blood, as the vision of Pain loomed over him. Your peace is an illusion, Naruto Uzumaki, Pain said, his voice echoing with a divine coldness. The only way to eradicate hatred is through absolute pain. Now, I'll take you with me, and the war will end. Pain raised one last black bar, aiming at Naruto's chest to render him completely unconscious. But the bar never went down. Shanaro. I swear Sosakin. The ground beneath Pain's feet exploded. An immense rock the size of a house, was thrown at a supersonic speed directly at the Akatsuki leader, forcing him to jump backwards. Simultaneously, two pure blue chakra lion heads cut through the air, shattering the black bar that Pain was holding in his hand. The dust has disappeared. In front of Naruto, blocking the rain god's vision, his two queens stood up. Sakura Aruno was standing with clenched fists, the ground around her cracked from the sheer force of her landing. By his side, Imada and Gaemon had the fluid posture of the clan, the twin lions' chakra roaring in their fists, and their Yakugan burning with a murderous determination. Naruto, pinned to the ground, opened his eyes wide, terror taking over his throat. Sakura-chan. Inada. What are they doing? Run away. Their chakra is too strong, they can't fight against it. Sakura didn't even turn her head. Shut up, you idiot. We told you we wouldn't let you carry all this alone. If you die, we die with you. And Nada nodded, her voice steady as tempered steel. And I will not back down. Because my ninja way. It's being by your side, Naruto-kun. And I will not allow this false god to take you away from us. Pain looked at them disdainfully, his eyes ringed without showing a hint of emotion. Love begets sacrifice. Sacrifice breeds hatred. Know the pain. Pain held out his hand. Banshaitanen. The force of attraction pulled Imada towards him at a lethal speed. Pain pulled a black bar out of his sleeve, ready to impale her. But the Kono trio had trained to cover their blind spots. Now, Inada. Sakura screamed, hitting the ground with a seismic force that lifted an impenetrable curtain of sharp rocks. Inada, in the middle of the air, did not try to resist the attraction. He used inertia to his advantage. He channeled his entire chakra into his palms. To that vacuum palm of the 8 trigrams. He fired a compressed air bullet directly at the curtain of rocks that Sakura had raised, turning the debris into deadly shrapnel that flew towards Pain at the speed of sound. Pain, forced to defend himself, changed his polarity. Shinra-tensei. The gravitational repulsion stopped the shrapnel and threw Imada violently backwards, but Sakura was already there. Catching her companion in midair and spinning to absorb the impact with her own back against a stone wall. Sakura spat out blood, feeling a couple of ribs crack, but immediately used her medical ninjutsu to mitigate the damage on both of them. They're persistent, Pain muttered. In a blink of gravity-defying speed, he appeared in front of them. Sakura tried to throw a devastating punch, but Pain dodged her with a millimeter movement and drove a black bar deep into her right shoulder, pinning her against the rubble. Sakura let out a cry of pain, her medical chakra being violently disrupted by the Rinnegan's interference. Sakura-chan. Inada screamed, lunging forward with her lion fists, but Pain held out his other hand. The Shinrat's invisible repulsion and hit Inada at point-blank range, sending her flying through the air, before crashing heavily to the ground, a few meters away from Naruto. Pain walked slowly towards Inada, who was struggling to get up, coughing up blood on the dust. The Akatsuki leader raised another black bar and, without a second's hesitation, plunged it deep into Inada's side, pinning her to the ground. My apologies, Pain said, looking at the immobilized Naruto. But the love you have for them will be your undoing. Exactly as it happened to me. The silence in the crater was absolute. The only sound was Sakura's labored breathing, uselessly struggling against the bar on her shoulder. And Inada's stifled moan a few meters away. Naruto's heart stopped. His golden eyes in the wise way saw Sakura's blood staining the rubble and Inada's blood forming a puddle on the ground. The two people who had accepted him, who loved him unconditionally, were bleeding and broken because of him. Something broke inside the Hinshiriki's soul. The seal on his stomach boiled. You hurt them. Naruto's voice was no longer human. It was a demonic growl, overlaid with multiple layers of echo, to my queens. The chakra burst was not orange, nor was it golden. It was a dark crimson red, dense and toxic. The atmospheric pressure became so heavy that the stone began to melt around the blonde. The red chakra formed a monstrous dome that expelled the black bars from his body like toothpicks. Pain stepped back, his eyes opening slightly. The power that emanated from the boy was a cataclysm. The fox had woken up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 tails of pure boiling chakra and bear formed around Naruto. The transformation in version 2 of the Kiwi was complete. There was no longer a human, just a red chakra skeleton, wrapped in the purest and oldest fury in the world. Naruto unleashed a roar that tore through the clouds and pounced on Pain. The Akatsuki leader was crushed, dragged and bombarded with brute force attacks that forced him to flee the Konoha crater. As the six-tailed monster drove the threat away, Sakura, ignoring the burning agony on her shoulder, concentrated all the chakra she had left in her left hand. With a scream of pure fury, he tore the black bar from his own body. Blood gushed out, but the green light from his hand instantly sealed the wound. Without wasting a second, he ran towards Hinata. "Resist, Hinata. I'm here." Sakura extracted the bar from her partner's side and began to apply the mystic palm in desperation, stabilizing the Eris Iga's vital flow. Hinata opened her eyes weakly, looking at the red trail of destruction in the distance. Naruto-kun. His chakra? She's crying, Sakura-chan. He's suffering. Miles away, Pain, despairing at the immense power of the nine-tailed fox, which soon reached 8 tails, unleashed his supreme technique. The tense Chibaku and planetary devastation. It attracted whole mountains, forest and rock, creating an immense stone moon in the sky to enclose the beast. Within that moon of darkness, Naruto was about to break the final seal and release the 9th tail. He was consumed with grief and guilt from believing that he had lost Sakura and Hinata. But in the last microsecond, a warm hand rested on his headspace. The 4th occasion, Minato Namikaze, appeared. In an emotional meeting between father and son, Minato revealed to him the truth of his lineage and restored the seal of the Kyuubi. Hearing that his parents had sacrificed everything for love, Naruto remembered the 2 girls lying in the crater of Konoha. I couldn't succumb to anger. They needed the wise man, not the devil. The immense stone moon in the sky cracked. The red chakra disappeared. Naruto Uzumaki emerged, plummeting to earth, back in perfect sage mode. Her golden eyes were filled with an unwavering clarity and resolution. He landed in front of Pain, who was exhausted after using his supreme technique. The final battle was a dance of intellect. Naruto had discovered the 5-second interval between the Shinra-tense and Pain. Using shadow clones as decoys and hiding in the rubble, he forced Pain to use his repulsion. In the 4th second, Naruto emerged from close range. This is for Jiraiya-sensei, and for them. Naruto roared. The Rasengan directly hit the chest of Eva's path. The rotating force shattered Yako's body, ending the physical battle. But the war was not over. Naruto tracked down the chakra signature of the real country, Nagato, which was hidden in a paper tree on the outskirts of the village. She walked towards him, not with the intention of killing, but to break the cycle of hatred. Through a raw dialogue, remembering Jiraiya's teachings, and proving that Sakura and Jimata's faith in him was not in vain. Naruto achieved the impossible, forgave Nagato, and showed him that true peace could exist. Moved by the immense light of the boy of the prophecy, Nagato sacrificed his own life using the Rain Tensei, a divine technique that resurrected all the fallen in the invasion of Konoha, including Kakashi and Fukasaku. The gray sky finally cleared, letting the sun's rays bathe the destroyed forest. Naruto got out of the paper tree, walked a few meters, and felt the whole world spinning around him. The wise way faded away, and with it, the last drop of energy in his body. His legs failed. The hero who had saved the world was going to fall face first into the mud. But it did not reach the ground. 2 pairs of arms wrapped around him simultaneously. To his left, Sakura held him by the waist, her hand glowing with the soft, warm green chakra of the medical ninjutsu, instantly healing the stabbing pain in his torn muscles. To her right, Hinata, leaning on Naruto's shoulder for nothing. Not falling herself, she held him tightly, her cheek pressed against the blonde's. Naruto slowly opened his eyes, finding himself surrounded by the scent of lotus and cherry blossoms. They're alive, Naruto whispered, his voice cracking with pure relief as he hugged them, both with weak arms. Sakura buried her face in his neck, the tears of joy mingling with the sweat and dirt. "Idiot! We told you we were your shield. And you are ours." And Mata kissed her cheek gently, stroking her blonde hair, smiling with absolute devotion. "Welcome home, Naruto-kun. You made it?" The whole village gathered around him, hailing the hero of Konoha, throwing him into the air in a sea of cheers and thanks. But for Naruto Uzumaki, the greatest triumph was not the recognition of the village. It was knowing that no matter how dark the gods or the monsters that came down from the sky, his two sons would still shine by his side. The reconstruction of Konoha after the assault of Pais was a living testimony of the will of fire, but peace was just a mirage. The summit of the 5 cages in the icy land of iron brought with it a truth that shook the foundations of the shinobi world. And the man in the mask, self-styled Madara Uchiha, had formally declared the 4th Great Ninja War. His goal was the capture of the 8 and the 9 tails to project the infinite Tsukuyomi, an eternal illusion that would eradicate the free will of humanity. Faced with this apocalyptic threat, the 5 great nations put aside decades of bloodshed and formed the first shinobi alliance. The first order of the Supreme Command was to hide the remaining Hinshirikwis. In the Okage's office, Tsunade rapped her desk with her knuckles, looking at Naruto, Sakura, and Hinata. "You will go to Turtle Island, in the Land of Lightning, Naruto. Officially, it is an S-rank mission to classify the ecology of the place. Unofficially, we'll hide you from Akatsuki, while the Alliance wages war." Naruto frowned, clenching his fists. "To hide? Grandma Tsunade, I can't just sit around while my friends die for me. It's an order from the Joint Command, Naruto. If you get captured, the world ends," Tsunade replied sternly, before softening her expression a little, as she looked at the 2 kunoichis at the blonde's sides. "However, I know that trying to hold you back will be impossible if your mind is not anchored. Sakura and Cream, I officially assign you as the supreme medical and sensory escort of the Hinshiriki. If he loses control trying to dominate Kyugi, you two are the only ones in the whole village capable of bringing him back." Sakura and Hinata exchanged a look of absolute resolve and nodded in unison. "We won't let the fox consume him," Shisu Sakura declared, adjusting the protector on her forehead. "We will protect him with our lives," Hinata added, her voice echoing with the authority of her clan's next leader. The trip to Tortuga Island was fast and tense. Accompanied by Yamato and Migui, the trio arrived at the ancestral mobile fortress. The training started immediately in front of the Waterfall of Truth. Naruto had to sit in front of the crystal-clear waters and face the embodiment of his own darkness, the Dark Naruto, formed by years of contempt and hatred from the villagers. In his headspace, the fight was a perfect draw. Every blow of wind was countered with the same force. Outside, in the physical world, Naruto was sweating profusely, his face contracted with tension. Sakura and Hinata were sitting in front of him, and Nada activated her Yakugan, observing the chaotic flow of chakra in the blonde's brain. "Your mind is in a storm, Sakura-chan. The residual hatred of the label is feeding its dark double." Sakura placed a glowing green chakra hand on Naruto's forehead, sending waves of calming energy to his nervous system. "Don't fight him, Naruto," Sakura whispered, hoping her voice would break through the mental barrier. "The pain you felt was real. But you're not alone anymore. Look at us. We're here." In the subconscious, Sakura's voice and the warm resonance of Hinata's chakra broke through the black fog. Naruto opened his eyes, lowered his fists, and instead of hitting his dark double, hugged him. She thanked him for having endured the pain all those years and promised him that, from now on, the love he received from his 2 queens would be enough to enlighten them both. The dark Naruto smiled and disappeared, merging with him in pure light. The first obstacle had been overcome, but the real hell was waiting inside the underground temple. In the stone chamber, Naruto sat in the lotus position, diving deep into his seal to face the fox with the 9 tails. The crash was titanic. Naruto used his Sage Mode, throwing immense Raisin Shuriken against at once. Hestia, trying to extract her pure chakra. But Kurama's hatred was a boiling ocean. In the physical world, Naruto's body began to convulse. The demon's red and toxic chakra seeped through her pores, burning her skin, and forming the tails of version 2. Yamato tried to use his wood element to suppress it, but the power was too overwhelming. "Don't you dare consume it!" Sakura roared. He threw himself on Naruto's boiling body, ignoring that the toxic chakra was burning his own hands and arms. He applied the mystic palm at maximum power, regenerating Naruto's skin as fast as the fox was destroying it. At the same time, Hinata knelt on the other side. Her hands were wrapped in the pure blue chakra of her twin lions. "I swear, Sosuken." Hinata struck with surgical precision the key tenketsus around the seal in Naruto's stomach. Not to close them, but to filter the network, blocking the fox's murderous intent, and allowing only the pure chakra to flow into Naruto's system. Inside his mind, Naruto was being dragged by the darkness, but then, two forces anchored him: the healing warmth of Sakura and the barrier, Hinata purifier. And in that instant of clarity, a new light appeared. Kasina Uzumaki, his mother, emerged from the residual seal, using her diamond chains to subdue the fox, and giving Naruto the time and love needed to rip out Kurama's pure chakra. In the underground chamber, the toxic darkness suddenly vanished. A burst of golden light, blinding and warm as the midday sun, illuminated the ancient stone. Yamato and Gui covered their eyes. When the light dimmed, Naruto was no longer covered in boiling red chakra. His entire body radiated golden flames, with black magatama marks adorning his neck and shoulders. The Ninetales chakra mode had been mastered. Naruto opened his eyes. There was no anger anymore, just an absolute peace, and a power that took your breath away. His heavenly eyes shone with a divine purity. He lowered his gaze to his hands, and then to the two women who, exhausted and with minor burns that were already healing, were looking at him with reverential amazement. Naruto reached out both hands, wrapped in golden flames, and took Sakura and Hinata's. The instant he made contact, the Cubino chakra burned them. He transferred to them, recognizing through Naruto's will who his absolute allies were. Two golden chakra mantles, lighter versions of Naruto's mantle, enveloped the kunoichi. His wounds disappeared instantly, and his chakra reserves, they multiplied to absurd levels. "This power," whispered Sakura, looking at her golden hands. "It is infinite. I feel like I could split the continent with just one finger." And Nada activated her Yakugan, and the radius of her vision expanded kilometers beyond her physical limits. "It's warm. As if your heart is embracing both of us, Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled, a radiant smile that eclipsed the light of his own cloak. "I wouldn't have made it without you guys. My mom helped me in there. He told me to choose strong women who really love me. I think I listened to him twice." But the peace lasted for a breath. With his new power, Naruto acquired the ability to feel negative emotions on a continental scale. He looked out over the ocean, through the immense rock walls of Turtle Island. He felt terror, agony, pain, and an immense thirst for blood. The war has begun, and our comrades are dying by the thousands. Naruto's voice turned grave, his face hardening. "I have to get out of here." Iruka and a containment team arrived to stop him, but Iruka's words about trusting him gave him the final resolution. Naruto wasn't going to sneak away. He was going to march to war. "We'll come with you," Sakura and Jimata declared in unison, standing up beside him. The golden mantle around him pulsed rhythmically. "If Madara Uchiha wants our boss, Inkariki will have to go through the two deadliest kunoichi in Konoha first," Sakura added, slamming her fist into her palm with a sonic boom. The golden trio broke through the island's barriers in a burst of supersonic speed, hurtling into the battlefield of the Fourth Great Ninja War. Miles away, on the coast of the First Division, the Alliance forces led by Darui were being massacred. The Golden and Silver Brothers, revived by the dark jutsu of Edo Tensei, had unleashed the power of the Ninetales, and the treasured weapons of the Sage of the Six Paths. King Kaku, enraged, had entered version 2, sweeping the beach with a demonic force. Just as an immense Vihuludama was about to pulverize an entire battalion of shinobi from the blade, the sky roared. 3 golden kites fell from the atmosphere, hitting the beach with the force of a meteorite. The sand rose up in tsunamis. When the dust cleared, the whole army was out of breath. Naruto Uzumaki was in the center, his cloak flaming with fury, having stopped the Vihuludama with an immense chakra arm, and deflected it into the sea, where he detonated that, creating a column of water hundreds of meters. To her right, Sakura Aruno, bathed in golden chakra, hit the beach floor. Shonaro. The impact fractured the entire coastline, creating a tectonic fault that swallowed hundreds of white zetsus in an abyss of sand and rock. To his left, and Mata and Ga, levitating slightly from the immense pressure of his chakra, untied his twin lion fists, which were now the size of mountains thanks to the amplification of Kurama's mantle. Gentle step roar of the Lion Kings. He threw the two massive chakra beasts towards the front, disintegrating. Integrating dozens of ninja revived by the Edo Tensei with a single impact that cut their elemental networks completely. The shinobi of the Alliance shouted in euphoria. The divine reinforcements had arrived. Kinkaku roared, furious at the interruption, and charged at Naruto. But before he could get close, Sakura intercepted the pseudo-Hinchiriki. With a golden chakra-infused punch, he sent him flying through 3 rock formations. Naruto looked at his 2 queens, who were now tearing through enemy lines with lethal efficiency and terrifying synchronicity. The wind howled around them as the sun reflected off their golden mantles. "All right, team," Naruto shouted, creating a raisin shuriken in each hand. "It's time to show these idiots why they should have never messed with Konoha." The coast of the First Division was a chaos of molten sand, salt water, and the deafening echo of explosions. Kinkaku, enraged and transformed into a dark red chakra six-tailed beast, roared at how his attacks were repelled so easily. The pseudo-Hinchiriki jumped towards the golden trio, its claws cutting the air with the intention of splitting them in 2. Darui, exhausted and holding the amber Koku no high purification vessel, shouted a warning. "Careful! His chakra is too dense, normal ninjutsu will not go through it." Naruto smiled sideways, his celestial eyes shining under Kurama's flaming aura. "We don't use normal ninjutsu, Darui." And Nata, Sakura-chan, assault B formation. The 2 kunoichis needed no further explanation. Years of training and a perfect synchronicity, now amplified by the telepathic and empathic golden chakra connection they shared, set them in motion before Naruto finished the sentence. And Mata slid forward, his Yakugan scanning Kinkaku's monstrous chakra network. The density of the mantle is lower at the base of his neck and at his hind joints indicated, and kills with surgical precision. "Sakura-chan, take him off the ground." Sakura, with a fierce smile that chilled the blood, concentrated her monstrous strength, now exponentially enhanced by Kurama's cloak. "With pleasure." Shonaro. Sakura didn't hit Kinkaku. She hit the tectonic fault that she had created seconds ago. The shock wave was so massive that a block of stone and sand the size of a building shot up, throwing Kinkaku into the air and completely unbalancing him. That was the moment. And Nata jumped, propelled by controlled explosions of chakra in her souls. In the air, his hands were wrapped in roaring beasts of pure chakra. Smooth step, lion twin cuffs. And Nata connected a flurry of punches at an imperceptible speed, directly on the weak points she had identified. The soft fist did not seek to do physical harm, it sought to devour. The blue chakra lions fed on Kinkaku's red cloak, ripping apart version 2's protection and exposing his elemental web. Kinkaku howled, feeling his stolen Kyuubi chakra being temporarily blocked. Naruto, who had been building up energy, appeared just above the falling enemy. In each of her hands, she twirled a dazzling raisin shuriken effetin. "Darui, get the pot ready." Naruto roared, throwing both wind blades. The attacks didn't cut Kinkaku off. They detonated at his sides, creating a hypercompressed wind vortex that paralyzed him in midair, shredding the rest of his chakra armor and leaving him completely defenseless. The impact threw him directly at the feet of the commander of the First Division. Darwin did not miss the oral opportunity. He activated the amber vessel of purification, and in a whirlwind of light, Kinkaku was sealed forever. The biggest threat on the coast had been eradicated in less than 3 minutes, thanks to the absolute coordination of the 3 sons of Konoha. The alliance erupted in a unanimous shout of victory, but Naruto didn't stop to celebrate. He closed his eyes and traced the cross seal. Thousands of comrades need us on the other fronts. Taikajeben without no jutsu. Multi-clone shadow jutsu. Hundreds of Naruto clones, all glowing with chakra mode, appeared on the beach. But they did not go alone. Naruto divided his chakra so that each clone squad was accompanied by shadow clones of Sakura and Hinata. Maintaining the A3 formation. The Golden Army scattered at lightning speed across the continent, turning the tide of the war in front of the White Zetsus. And the Edo Tensei. Naruto's original body, along with the real Sakura and Hinata, headed towards the point where the chakra vibration was more or less to the 4th division, led by Gaara and Onoki. The trip was fast, but as we approached the rocky moors, the sky darkened in a way. Unnatural way. A sepulchral chill ran down Naruto's spine. Through Hinoichi's sensory network, a scream of pure terror echoed in their minds to all the units. The real Madara Uchiha has been revived by the Edo Tensei. I repeat, Madara Uchiha is on the battlefield. The trio accelerated. Upon storming into the battlefield of the 4th Division, the scene was dantesque. Thousands of shinobi were lying on the ground. Madara Uchiha, with his red armor and the Rinnegan shining in his eyes, danced among the soldiers like an untouchable god. He had swept an entire division with simple taijutsu and kenjutsu. Madara stopped on a rock spire, looking at the exhausted cages. He traced 3 simple stamps with his hands. Let's see how they deal with the power of a god. Tenga and Shinsei. The clouds were torn apart. The sky seemed to burn when a colossal meteorite, capable of erasing the entire mountain range, descended from the stratosphere. Panic seized the alliance. The guns fell to the ground. Gaara and the elder Onoki flew towards the burning mass, combining the sand and the rock lightning jutsu to stop the impact. With an effort that almost cost them their lives, they managed to stop the meteor a few meters from the ground. Madara crossed her arms, not showing a hint of impression. And what will they do with the second one, Onoki? A second celestial rock, even more massive than the first, pierced through the clouds and collided relentlessly. Against the first meteor, the pressure threatened to crush the entire division. Gaara and Onoki started to give in, coughing up blood. The end was imminent. Not on our watch. Naruto's scream broke the heavy air of despair. A triple flash illuminated the meteorite men. Naruto clasped his hands together, Kurama's chakra exploding to its absolute limit. The nine-tailed fox's immense translucent head and arms materialized, bumping its claws into the base of the lower meteor. To help support the titanic weight. Naruto, hold the base. Sakura-chan, get ready, ordered Hinata. The Igano heiress jumped towards the rock. He stayed on the ground, placing himself in the geometric center of the trap division. If that rock goes to pieces, the debris will kill half the army. She screamed and whipped cream. He released all the golden chakra that Naruto had lent him and combined it with his own defensive mastery. Sessashamantong, Great Divine Celestial Rotation. A blue and golden chakra dome of colossal proportions covered the thousands of terrified shinobi, creating an impenetrable umbrella. Above, on the head of Kurama's avatar, Sakura Aruno flexed her legs. The 100 strength seal on his forehead lit up, spreading black lines across his face illuminated by the golden aura. Break it, Sakura-chan. Naruto roared, injecting more chakra into his beast arms to push the meteor up, giving Sakura the perfect angle. Sakura jumped. It was not a simple jump. The kinetic force cracked the avatar's chakra chanting. It flew like a ballistic missile straight towards the collision of the two meteors. All the frustration, all the hellish training, all the love for the village and for the man who held the sky down, were concentrated in his right fist. Shonaro meteoric impact. Sakura hit the exact epicenter of the collision of the celestial rocks. The impact did not produce a normal sound. It was an acoustic void followed by deafening thunder. Sakura's force, combined with Naruto's pressure pushing from below, fractured the second meteor from its core. The cracks expanded at the speed of light. With an explosion that lit up the continent, the two heavenly rocks exploded into millions of harmless pieces. The debris that rained down on the 4th Division bounced uselessly against Hinata's immense golden celestial rotation, leaving the alliance completely safe. Madara Uchiha opened his eyes wide. His relaxed posture disappeared. From the top of his rock pillar, he watched the dust shower dissipate, revealing the Hinchuriki of the Ninetails. And two women wrapped in his chakra. They had shattered a divine technique with pure brute force, coordination, and will. Sakura landed lightly on Kurama's avatar's shoulder, shaking the dust off her gloves. And Nara undid her dome, breathing calmly, her Yakugan nailed to the legendary Uchiha. So the will of fire has spawned interesting monsters, Madara muttered, a predatory smile crossing her resurrected face. A physical force capable of pulverizing mountains, eyes that see the absolute truth, and the power of the primordial beast. Fascinating. Naruto undid the avatar to conserve energy, lowering himself to the ground next to his two queens. Gaara, catching his breath, approached them along with the other cages who had just arrived at the battlefield. Tsunade, the Reikikage. Mitarum. You're late, you brats, Tsunade said with a fierce proud smile, seeing the seal on her apprentice's forehead. We had to take care of a couple of annoyances at the shore, Grandma, Naruto replied, without taking his eyes off life. Madara's Dorados. But we're already here. And that fossil up there is about to wish it had stayed in its grave. Madara did not wait any longer. He drew a quick stamp. Let's see if they can dance in my forest. Makuden Juka and Kaiten. Element would birth of a sea of trees. A tsunami of colossal roots and destructive wood erupted from the barren earth, advancing to devour the cages and the golden trio. The wood element of wood absorbed chakra, making it lethal to Naruto's cloak. Don't touch him directly, Tsunade warned. Hinata and Sakura exchanged a glance. Naruto-kun raises the temperature, Hinata requested, adopting his combat stance. Roger that. Naruto formed multiple Raisin Shuriken and injected them with tiny sparks of fire that he had learned to stabilize. The blades of burning wind cut the sea of wood, while Akura tore whole pieces out of the ground and threw them like siege projectiles to shatter the thickest roots. And Nata, moving among the chaos, was cutting the chakra flows of the surviving roots with her twin lions, withering the forest before she could catch them. The golden trio was relentlessly advancing through the forest of death, opening the way for the 5 cages. The real war for the fate of the ninja world had just escalated to mythical proportions. And Madara Uchiha was about to find out what facing Uzumaki Naruto meant. To face the combined strength of 3 indomitable souls. The dense forest of lethal wood of Madara Uchiha was reduced to burning ashes and splinters by the unstoppable advance of the golden trio. Behind them, the 5 cages caught their breath. Tsunade looked at her apprentice, whose strength of 100 seal shone with the same intensity as hers, and felt a pride that widened her chest. Don't stay behind, cages, Naruto shouted, without stopping his advance. This guy is not invincible if we attack him together. Madara from above frowned slightly. The insolence of that generation was as great as its power. He drew a single stamp. If they are so confident in their numbers, let's see how they deal with this. Taj Makutamban without no jutsu. Wooden multi-clone jutsu. 25 wooden clones exact to Madara sprouted from the surviving branches. The alliance held its breath as each of the 25 clones untied the rib cage and arms of a spectral blue Susanoo. 5 against 1 for each box, Madara said coolly. And for the 3 of you, I'll leave you with 10. Don't say I'm not fair. Now, do these clones want to use the Susanoo or not? The 10 Madara clones, surrounded by the Susanoo, pounced on Naruto, Sakura, and Hinata. The spectral swords sliced through the air, seeking to shatter them into pieces. Shield and spear formation, ordered Sakura. And Mata took a step forward, his Yakugan reading the angles of the 10 simultaneous attacks. He released an obscene amount of gold chakra, mixed with his own blue chakra. Sesha-Shamantong. Great divine celestial rotation. The immense rotating dome blocked the momentum of the 10 swords of the Susanoo. The crash generated sparks of energy that lit up the darkened sky. Hinata's barrier creaked under the pressure of 10 spectral warriors, but it did not yield. At the exact second the swords bounced, losing their inertia, Hinata undid the dome. That was the opening. Naruto and Sakura came out fired like 2 missiles from inside the vanishing defense. Naruto materialized 6 golden chakra arms from his back, each holding a giant Rasengan. With blinding speed, he crushed the spiral spheres against the 2 defenses of 5 of the clones, shattering the Susanoo's armor and pulverizing the wood inside. Simultaneously, Sakura concentrated all her physical chakra. She ignored the spectral swords, trusting that her Yakugu seal would cure her of any scratches, and lunged directly at the weapons. Mature blue. Shanaro? His punches didn't just break the Susanoo. The impact force was so concentrated that the shockwave traveled through the spectral armor and burst the wooden clones from the inside. Within seconds, the 10 clones that Madara had sent against them were reduced to smoke and debris. Madara, seeing his clones being slaughtered with such brutality, sighed. "I guess playing with kids always ends up being boring. I will show you something that you will not be able to destroy with your fists, nor deflect with your eyes." A chakra? Blue, cold, ancient, and terrifyingly massive, it burst from Madara's original body. The Susanoo began to grow. He was no longer a skeleton, nor a half-hearted warrior. Muscles, Tengu armor, and colossal wings formed around him. The spectral warrior reached the size of a mountain range. Madara floated on the glass of the forehead of the perfect Susanoo. The simple act of unsheathing his immense spectral katana generated a pressure wave that split 2 entire mountains in the distance. The morale of the division, and even that of the cages, began to falter. It was the power of a god. An absolute power that dwarfed any human effort. "This is the divine power," Onoki muttered, falling to his knees. But in the center of despair, a golden fire was lit more strongly than ever. "Don't you dare give up!" Naruto's roar shook the earth. The blond man joined his hands. The seal in his stomach opened completely, letting out the entirety of the chakra that Kurama was willing to offer him. The immense fox with the 9 tails materialized in its full golden and shiny chakra form, matching in size. The perfect Susanoo of Madara. Naruto was suspended in the chakra crystal of the fox's head. But he was not alone. To his right, Sakura, to his left, Hinata. "If that Uchiha thinks a giant suit of armor is enough to stop us, he's very much mistaken," Sakura said. Kneeling on the golden fox's head, he placed both hands on Kurama's chakra and channeled the pure life energy of his force of 100 seal directly into the beast avatar. "Naruto, take my chakra." The golden flames of the fox mingled with a bright green aura. The avatar's chakra muscles densified, becoming immensely stronger and acquiring an immediate cell regeneration capacity. Kurama, inside, smiled with sharp teeth as he felt the brutal injection of vitality from the medical kunoichi. And Madara was not left behind. He knelt down next to Sakura, activated his Yakugan to the maximum limit, and dipped his hands into the fox's chakra. He injected his secret technique into the 9 immense tails of the avatar. The fox's tails took the shape of the roaring heads of the twin-fist lions. On a titanic scale. "He won't be able to keep that armor if we drain his chakra, Naruto-kun. I will guide your blows towards the knots of energy of your Susanoo." Naruto felt that the power coursing through his being was invincible. He was wielding the strongest beast in the world, armored with Sakura's brute strength and absolute healing, and guided by Hinata's vision and lethal drainage technique. "Come on, team!" Naruto roared. The golden fox, with his green aura and his lion tails, charged at the perfect Susanoo. The crash was a cataclysmic event. Madara's spectral katana descended to split the fox in 2, but Naruto raised the avatar's arms, blocking the naked edge with his claws powered by Sakura's strength. The shockwave swept the clouds from the continental sky. Now, Hinata. The 9 tails of the fox, transformed into the jaws of blue chakra lions, pounced on the armor of the Susanoo. They did not strike to destroy, they deeply bit into Madara's blue chakra. The soft fist on a colossal scale began to devour and destabilize the elemental network that held the shape of the perfect Susanoo. Madara opened his eyes, genuinely amazed. For the first time since his resurrection, he felt that his absolute defense was losing cohesion. Amazing. They have fused their ninja arts with the power of the beast. Esirama, look at what your stupid will of fire has created. Madara shouted, his warrior blood boiling with emotion. With the Susanoo losing density due to Inada's drainage, Naruto found the opening that his Yakugan indicated to him. He formed a colossal Bijuludama in the fox's jaws, infused with all the wind chakra he could accumulate. He fired the annihilation ray directly to the cracked breast of the Susanoo. The explosion shattered the Tengu armor, ripping the crystal from the forehead and sending Madara flying through the air. The perfect Susanoo crumbled into pieces of blue light. The invincible god of the Uchiha had been knocked down in a frontal combat. The 5 cages from below watched with tears of amazement. They had witnessed the birth of a legend that surpassed any historical record. Naruto caught Sakura and Hinata by the waist, while Kurama's avatar was falling apart from the immense exhaustion. Landing all 3 on the scorched earth, breathing hard but beaming with victory. But the fate of the ninja world would not be decided so easily. The space above the battlefield was violently distorted, forming a Kamui vortex. From him emerged the man in the mask, Obito Uchiha. I wasn't coming to fight with Kune. His arrival made the ground shake, as if the heart of the planet was having a heart attack. With a dull rumble, he summoned the immense demonic statue of the Gedomazo Outer Road. The monstrosity of parched wood roared. Obito threw 2 gigantic objects into the air, the amber purification vessel and the crimson gourd. Tools he had stolen from Darui's unsealed camp while the Alliance was distracted with Malara. The Ninetails chakra in the gold and silver brothers, and the Eight-Tails tentacle that Kisame handed me. That's enough, Obito declared, his voice empty of any humanity. The Gedo statue opened its immense maw and devoured the relics. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any explosion. The air became heavy, toxic, and suffocating. Sakura fell to one knee, clutching her chest, feeling the atmospheric pressure trying to crush her lungs. And Nada deactivated her Yakugan, moaning in pain as she saw the chakra abomination that was brewing. Kurama, inside Naruto, stood up, his voice shaking for the first time. Naruto. That thing has no emotions, it has no soul. It is pure corrupted natural energy. It's the end. The 10 Tails has woken up. The Gedo statue began to tear itself apart. Bulbous muscles, an immense mouth full of sharp teeth, and a single colossal eye injected in blood. And with the pattern of the Rhine Sharingan, were open to the world. 10 immense queues were agitated, destroying kilometers of landscape with each brush. The primordial beast, the mother of the chakra, the Jurubi, stood over humanity. Madara, quickly recovering from his fall, landed on the head of the 10 Tails, next to Obito. Both connecting to the beast through thick tendrils of flesh and chakra. It's the end of your hopes, Obito said, looking at the trio. Their links mean nothing in the face of absolute nullity. Surrender and sleep in the infinite Tsukuyomi. The Jub opened its jaws, concentrating a cone-shaped Bijuludama, a mass of annihilation whose size dwarfed those of any other beast. If that touched the ground, the entire division and the surrounding mountains would disappear. Naruto stood up, his legs shaking from the exhaustion of having kept the avatar powered up, but he refused to fall. Sakura stood up beside him, the light of her Yakugo seal still beating faintly. And Nada positioned herself to her other hand, her fists clenched. The terror threatened to paralyze them, but then, a sound made them turn their heads. They were not alone. Thousands, tens of thousands of chakra signatures appeared on the horizon. The entire Shinobi Alliance, guided by the headquarters and following the immense flash of golden light that the trio had created by shooting down the Susanoo, arrived on the battlefield. Clouds of dust rose as the squadrons of the leaf, sand, cloud, fog, and rock clustered behind them. Shikamaru, Hino, Choji, Neji, La, Kiba. Everyone was there, with their guns drawn, ready to face the end of the world. Naruto looked at his army, then at Sakura, and finally at Hinata. The fear evaporated, replaced by the purest conviction. He held his 2 queens' hands tightly, feeling their heartbeat synchronize with his. "We are not empty," Obito shouted Naruto, his voice echoing across the battlefield, thanks to the Yamanaka family's telepathy. "Our bonds make us invincible. We will show you the true power of the shinobi world." The 10 Tails let out a deafening roar, firing the absolute death ray. The climax of the Fourth Great Ninja War, the battle for humanity's very survival, had reached its point of no return. The annihilation ray of the Ten Tails crossed the battlefield, distorting the air with a heat and density that crushed the lungs of everyone present. It was a cone-shaped Bijuludama, designed not only to destroy, but to erase any traces of matter from the face of the earth. Shikamaru Nara, connected to the entire alliance through Hino's telepathic network, transmitted the order with desperate urgency. Earth element users, put up as many walls as possible. We have to divert the trajectory. Tens of thousands of shinobi hit the ground in unison, raising countless walls of stone and mud. But the black sphere of the primordial beast pierced through them as if they were sheets of wet paper. The impact was imminent, and despair began to break the ranks. But at the forefront, the golden trio did not retreat a millimeter. Don't try to stop him, he has to be diverted to the sky. Naruto roared, feeling that Kurama's chakra was flowing again thanks to the constant connection with Sakura and Hinata. Sakura stepped forward, her Yakugu seal glowing with an inner green light. Come down. And Cream, prepare your rotation. I'll do the ramp. Sakura sank both fists into the earth and gun. Channeling a monstrous amount of physical force and chakra, he ripped off an entire tectonic plate in front of them, tilting it at 60 degrees as if it were a launching ramp. Massive. The Bijuludama crashed into the rock ramp. The friction was so brutal that the stone instantly began to melt, threatening to pierce through it. In that microsecond, Imada jumped on the burning rock plate. Releasing all his chakra from the soft fist, mixed with the golden aura of the Kyuubi, he began to spin. Akeshi Kaiten. Celestial rotation of the 8 trigrams. He did not use the dome to defend himself from direct impact, but to envelop the energy sphere as if it were a gear. Inada's repulsive spin collided with the surface of the Bijuludama, losing the destructive friction, and forcing the immense mass of energy to skate over Sakura's ramp, altering its trajectory a few degrees upwards. Now, Naruto. Both Kunoichi shouted, the pressure making them recoil. Naruto was suspended in the air, held by a chakra arm of Kurama. In his hand, a F-Dunch Lady Raisin Shuriken, super big Raisin Shuriken ball, was roaring with the force of a hurricane. He threw it directly at the lower base of the Hyugui's attack. The hyper-compressed wind wedge impacted at the exact spot, providing the final thrust. The Bijuludama veered into the stratosphere, detonating miles above. The sky turned white, and the shockwave dissipated the clouds from the entire continent, but the Shinobi Alliance was safe. Obito Uchiha, from the monster's head, gritted his teeth behind his mask. His pathetic tricks only delay the inevitable. We'll see if they can divert this. Makuden Saseki no Jutsu. Jutsu would element of cutting stakes. The ten-tailed one waved his immense limbs. Millions of wooden stakes sharp as spears began to sprout from his body, shot into the sky, and then rained down on the army. Like a storm of inescapable death. The stakes pierced shields, armor, and flesh with terrifying ease. Screams of agony began to fill the battlefield. The alliance was being decimated. Naruto, using chakra mode, was moving at the speed of light, intercepting thousands of stakes. But his energy was reaching a critical limit after having maintained the giant avatar and deflected the bomb from the beast. His breathing became erratic, and the golden cloak flickered, leaving him vulnerable amid the hail of projectiles. A concentrated burst of lethal stakes headed straight for Naruto's blind spot, just as his knees failed. Neyiri Ga, with her Yakugan activated, and understanding that the Hinchiriki's life was the key to the war, ran to get in the way. He was willing to sacrifice his life, opening his arms to receive the impact and protect Naruto. Just as the fate of the secondary branch dictated in his old beliefs. But in this timeline, Neiji's fate had been shattered in the Chunin exams. And her classmates weren't going to let her die. Neji, get out of the way. Inada's heart-rending scream cut through the air. The heiress of the Iga clan did not hesitate. Ignoring the fatigue of his muscles, he threw himself in front of his cousin. But she was not alone. Sakura appeared beside him in a flash of pure speed. The stakes fell as a divine punishment. and Nada spread out her arms, her hands emitting an uninterrupted stream of chakra. Shugo Akurokujiansh. 8 trigrams, 64 protective palms. A network of incredibly sharp chakra threads formed in front of them, cutting and repelling dozens of wooden stakes into harmless splinters. But the density of the death attack was monstrous. A huge wooden spear managed to break through Inada's defense, aimed directly at Neiji's heart. The sound of wood-piercing flesh echoed in the chaos. Neiji opened his eyes wide, waiting for the pain. But the stake had not touched him. In front of him, Sakura Aruno was holding the sharp point of the wooden stake a few millimeters from Neiji's chest. Her gloved hands were bloody, the wood having pierced her palms, but the medical kunoichi did not give a millimeter of ground. His Yakugu seal glowed with a blinding fury, regenerating his tissues as fast as the wood tore them apart, steaming with healing steam. With a roar of pure brute force, Sakura clenched her fists, splitting the thick wood of the primordial beast in two, as if it were a simple dry branch, throwing the pieces to the ground. Silence enveloped that corner of the battlefield. Neiji fell to his knees, breathing hard, looking at the two women who had just upset the thread of his life. Sakura shook the blood off her hands, her wounds already closed, as Inada offered her cousin her hand to help him up. "We told you that fate is an illusion, Neiji," Inada said, with a tremulous but authoritative smile. "In this family, no one dies to protect another. We all survive together." Naruto, catching his breath behind them, felt his soul returning to his body. The terror of almost losing one of his closest friends evaporated when he saw his two sons shining in the middle of the darkness. He walked towards them, wrapping one arm around Sakura's waist and the other around Inada's shoulders, resting his forehead against that of his pink-haired companion, and then quickly kissing the heiress Iga's cheek. "You too. They are terrifying and perfect. They saved my life, and they saved Neiji," Naruto whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Sakura smiled back at him, stroking his ash-covered face. "That's what we're here for, you idiot. But we can't go on like this. The army is falling apart under this rain of wood." Naruto looked at the alliance. The doctors were overwhelmed. "I have to share the Kurama chakra with everyone. If I wrap them in the fox's cloak, the wood will not be able to pierce them, and their wounds will heal. But distributing chakra to 80,000 people one by one would take too long." Kurama spoke into the blonde's headspace, his voice echoing with a newly acquired respect. "Naruto, your chakra is perfectly synchronized with that of your two females. If you do it alone, you'll get burned. But if you use them as conduits, the girl with pink hair has perfect chakra control and immense vitality. The girl with the white eyes has the most accurate vision network in the world to connect the tenketsus of others at a distance. Merge my power with them." Naruto didn't think twice about it. He separated a little and took the hands of both kunoichi. "Girls, I need you to be my conduits. Sakura, I want you to pump your vitality into my network. And Nada, use your Byakugan to locate the chakra signatures of each shinobi in the alliance and guide my energy towards them. We're going to protect them all at once." Sakura and Hinata nodded, understanding the monumentality of the task. Naruto closed his eyes and Kurama's chakra exploded, but instead of radiating outward, it flowed through his hands, directly towards Sakura and Hinata. Sakura closed her eyes, her Byakugan seal beating like a second heart. He mixed his pure medical chakra with the power of the beast, softening the aggressive nature of the fox and turning it into an absolute healing cloak. And Nada raised her Yakugan to the absolute limit, the veins of her face marking intensely. His mind connected to Hino's sensory network, mapping the position of 80,000 shinobi in fractions of a second. He guided the fused chakra flow as if he was weaving an invisible net over the entire battlefield. The result was a miracle witnessed by immortal gods. In a single blink of an eye, tens of thousands of injured, exhausted, and terrified shinobi were simultaneously wrapped in red and golden chakra mantles. The lethal wounds closed in seconds. Fatigue disappeared, replaced by superhuman strength and overflowing elemental reserves. The wooden stakes that kept falling bounced harmlessly against the chakra layers of the alliance. Obito and Madara watched from the beast's head, stupefaction breaking through its facade of divine indifference. The entire valley had turned into a sea of orange flames, vibrating with an unshakable will. In the center of the sea of light, Naruto, Sakura, and Jimata were holding hands. They were the trinity that held the world: infinite power, inexhaustible healing, and perfect vision. "It is the will of Konoha," the elder Onoki shouted, crying as he felt the warmth of Naruto's chakra on his wrinkled body. Kakashi, feeling his Sharingan eye burn with new energy, held up a kunai. "This is the power of the new Team 7. And from the Eris Iga. Attack! Let's break that stupid mask for them." Naruto roared. The entire Shinobi Alliance charged at the Ten Tails with a roar that made the sky shake. The combined attacks of thousands of empowered shinobi forced the primordial beast to retreat. Stumbling under the weight of the united humanity's counterattack, Naruto, Sakura, and Jimata were not far behind. Taking advantage of the chaos, they launched themselves directly at the Jurabe's head, jumping through the tentacles and the gusts of wind. Obito prepared a Gumbai war fan to receive them, using the Kamu to become intangible. But the trio already knew their trick. They had fought, analyzed, and perfected their strategy. "And Cream, your turn," Naruto shouted, throwing a cradle and three-pointed at the masked man. Obito let the kunai pass harmlessly through him. But Hinata, running right behind Naruto, concentrated the entire chakra of the mantle in her hands. Action! Vacuum palm. He fired a massive air bullet. Obito, confident in his intangibility, did not move. However, in the Kamula dimension, where his body was being moved to avoid the air wave, Kakashi, who had been transported there previously by Naruto in a secret strategy, was waiting. Kakashi hit Obito's solid form in the other dimension, canceling his technique and forcing him to become tangible in the real world. Hinata's vacuum palm hit Obito squarely in the chest, completely unbalancing him and lifting him into the air. "Sakura-chan!" Hinata shouted. Sakura, jumping over both of them, channeled a monstrous chakra, green and gold in his fist. He appeared directly over Obito in the air, his green eyes distilling a fury accumulated by years of wars and pain. "This is for trying to steal our future." Sakura descended like a hammer of the gods, striking Obito's shoulder with such brutality that she drove it into the canticle of the primordial beast, cracking the wooden flesh of the tentails. Obito coughed up blood, stunned by the physical impact he couldn't dodge. He looked up only to find the last piece of the ultimate combo. Naruto Uzumaki was standing in front of him, his right hand holding a satin Rasengan resplendent, imbued with the weight of the promises he had made to his two queens and to the whole world. The Rasengan hit full on Obito's face. The sound of the glass shattering echoed over the din of the tentails. The orange spiral's mask exploded into a million pieces, falling to the wind like useless confetti. The shattered and scarred face of Obito Uchiha was revealed in the light of the battlefield. The first great physical and moral victory of the war had been claimed by the perfect synchronicity of the Hinshiriki, the medical Kunoichi, and the Yaku princess. And as they landed firmly on the beast, flanking Naruto with their weapons at the ready and their cloaks on fire, it became clear to the Uchiha gods that the love these three shared was a much more lethal weapon than any eternal illusion. Obito Uchiha's face, furrowed with scars and marked by the pain of decades of manipulation, was exposed to the fetid wind of the battlefield. The mask of invincibility had been broken, not only by the physical impact of the Rasengan, but by the overwhelming strength of the bonds he had just witnessed. Naruto, landing in front of him on the wooden meat of the Ten Tails, he did not raise his fist to deliver a deadly blow. Her celestial eyes, now free from chakra mode to conserve energy, looked at Obito with an empathy that cut deeper than any kunai. Behind the blonde, Sakura and Jimata silently descended, flanking him like two guardians. Inseparable. Through a clash of wills on the mental plane, Naruto shattered Obito's psychological defenses. He showed her that loneliness and the despair of losing someone loved should not be the engine to destroy the world, but the reason to protect what was still left in it. "Look at them, Obito," Naruto said into the headspace, pointing to the warm presences of Sakura and Hinata. "I was in hell too. I also believed that this world offered only pain. But they saved me. Love is not a weakness that should be eradicated in an infinite dream. It's the only thing that makes us truly strong. Rin would have never wanted you to erase the world for her. Obito fell to his knees, his spirit finally broken by the blinding light of the boy's fiery will. Tears streamed down his disfigured face, repenting of his sins and renouncing his role as the Dark Savior. But war knew no mercy, and Madara Uchiha was not going to allow his great theatrical work to end for a change of heart. Taking advantage of Obito's weakness, Black Zetsu emerged from the earth, attaching himself to Lucia Kaido's body. With absolute parasitic control, he forced Obito to weave the seals of the Samsara reincarnation Tensujutsu Rain. "Stop him!" Sakura shouted, throwing herself forward with her fist in the air. But it was too late. Madara Uchiha's Edo Tensei body crumbled, revealing living flesh, throbbing blood, and a heart that was beating with a demonic force. Madara had been completely resurrected. Blind for the moment, but with the power of a primordial god flowing through his living veins. Within minutes, absolute chaos ensued. Madara regained one of her Rinnegan eyes thanks to a white Zetsu clone, summoned the Gedo statue and, with a simple glance, repelled all the tailed beasts that had been freed from death. Naruto, in the vanguard, activated his Kurama mode once more, attempting to protect the other Vijayas. But Madara smiled. Immense purple chakra chains, forged with the power of the Rinnegan, sprouted from the jaws of the demonic statue on the outer path. The chains of the outer road were the ultimate curse for any Hinshiriki. One of the chains snaked across the battlefield at a blinding speed and wrapped itself around the neck of Kurama's avatar. The nine-tailed fox roared, digging its claws into the earth, resisting with titanic strength. But the attraction of the Gedo statue was absolute. "Naruto?" The unisonous cry of Sakura and Hinata tore through the din of the battlefield. They ran towards him, desperate. Sakura shattered the ground in her path, throwing massive rocks at the chain to try to break it. And Hinata activated the twin lions to the maximum, hitting the purple chakra links with the intention of draining the technique. But the spiritual steel of the six paths bounced off physical attacks and consumed the soft fist chakra as if it were nothing. Inside Naruto, Kurama looked at him solemnly. "Naruto, they're going to extract me. There's no way to stop this. I'll take care of the rest. Don't die, brat." The chain pulled violently. The golden chakra was ripped from Naruto's body in a brutal torrent. The connection was cut. The fox with the 9 tails was dragged into the jaws of the statue, and the immense power that had illuminated the alliance was extinguished. Naruto's physical body, suddenly stripped of the immense life force that had inhabited him since the day of his birth, became completely empty. Her eyes rolled over. He plummeted from the air towards the scorched earth, like a bird with its wings cut off. Sakura jumped into the void, catching Naruto's inert body before it crashed into the rubble. And Madara slid to his side the instant they touched the ground. When Sakura turned Naruto around, the world stopped for both of them. The blonde man's skin was deadly pale. Her vibrant cheek markings seemed to be fading away. Her blue eyes were half-opened, dull and lifeless. And the scariest thing of all, his chest wouldn't move. The removal of a bicycle was an absolute death sentence. "No, no, no. Idiot, look at me." Sakura, her hands shaking, tore Naruto's jacket and pressed her palms against his chest. An incandescent green aura erupted from his hands. He channeled all the power of his Byakugan seal, trying to force Naruto's heart to beat. And Hinata fell to her knees, the Byakugan revealing the cruelest truth to her. Naruto's chakra grid was shutting down. The flames of his life were reduced to ashes. Tears welled up from Eris Iga's pearl eyes, falling on Naruto's pale face. "In Naruto-kun, please don't leave us. You promised." Sob and Cream, holding her hand. Inert of the blonde and pressing her against his own chest, pumping his soft fist chakra into his system, not to attack, but to keep the vital ducts open, acting as a pacemaker of pure energy. Gaara landed next to him, on a cloud of sand, her face pale with urgency. "Sakura and Cream, Get him up on the sand. Kurama told me before being sealed that if we take Naruto to the 4th room and transfer the yin half of the fox to him, he will survive. We have to move now. The two kunoichi didn't waste a millisecond. They lifted Naruto's body to the flying arena. From Gahara. The journey through the sky was a race against the Grim Reaper himself. Sakura was riding hanged on Naruto's torso. Seeing that traditional medical ninjutsu was not enough to keep the oxygen flowing to his brain, he made an extreme decision. Dictated by desperation. Of pure love. With a chakra scalpel, Sakura opened a perfect surgical incision on the side of Naruto's chest. He plunged his right hand directly into his chest cavity and grabbed the blonde's heart. With his own hand and his medical chakra, he began to manually pump the muscle. Cardiac, forcing the blood to circulate. And Nata, kneeling next to Naruto's head, was using her Yakugan to monitor every blood vessel and nerve ending. More pressure on the left ventricle, Sakura-chan. His brain flow is dropping. No, I won't allow it. And Nata bent her face and sealed her lips over Naruto's, blowing air into his lungs steadily, sharing her own vital breath. As her winged tears mingled. The duo of queens were literally holding Naruto's soul in their hands, refusing with a fury. Guessed to let death take him away. While his physical body was kept alive by the unbreakable love of Sakura and Hinata deep in his subconscious. Naruto awoke in an ethereal plane, serene and covered with a shallow water. In front of him, floating in the air and surrounded by black spheres, was the sage of the 6 paths himself, Agoromo Suki. The sage recognized Naruto as the reincarnation of his son Asura. He listened to the boy's heart, not a heart full of desire for power or conquest, but a heart anchored to the earth, by the deep love for his comrades and for the 2 women who at that very moment were defying death. For him. Your bonds have saved you, Naruto Uzumaki, he said to Goromo, his voice echoing like distant thunder. The devotion of those 2 souls who cry for you in the outside world has kept your spirit from fading into the void. You are worthy to inherit the power to change this world. Agoromo extended his hand, and Naruto slammed his palm against the shinobi gods, receiving the seal of the sun. And half of the divine power of the 6 paths. Simultaneously, thanks to the intervention of Gahara, Minato, Kakashi and Obito, who had finally returned to the light, the Jin half of Kurama was sealed in the blonde's body. In the physical world, Madara Uchiha had absorbed the 10 tails, ascending to a divine form. Dressed in white, wielding a black staff, and surrounded by spheres of the search for truth, he was about to annihilate Migui. The taijutsu master had opened the 8th gate of death, sacrificing his life to shatter half of Madara's body in a titanic attack. But the embers of his youth were going out. Madara, regenerating with a sadistic smile, threw a sphere of the quest of the truth into Gui's immobile body to completely disintegrate it. But the black sphere did not reach its destination. It was kicked violently towards the sky, as if it were a simple ball. The impact echoed throughout the battlefield. Naruto Uzumaki was standing in front of Gui. It no longer radiated only the Kurama chakra. His body was wrapped in the sage mode of the 6 paths. His jacket was open, revealing a circle of bright light on his chest and a new seal on his stomach. 9 spheres of the search for truth floated majestically on his back and in his hands. He held 2 short staffs of absolute black chakra. His eyes were no longer celestial, nor did they have the orange mark of toads. They were of a pure golden color, with cross-shaped pupils, emanating an authority that rivaled that of Malara. Naruto bent down and posed his hand, marked with the seal of the sun, on Gui's steaming chest. The flame of youth, which was about to be extinguished in ashes, was rekindled by the divine power of creation. Gui took a breath. 100 meters away, leaning against each other on the Gara sand, Sakura and Hinata watched the scene. Extreme exhaustion threatened to make them faint. Sakura's hands were stained with Naruto's blood, and Hinata's lips were trembling from the cold of exhaustion. But when they saw Naruto's back, standing up, alive and brimming with a warm and protective power, they both let out a sob of pure, absolute and heartbreaking relief. Naruto turned his head slightly over his shoulder. His golden eyes scanned the shattered field and dug into them exactly. In the midst of the apocalypse, surrounded by gods and monsters, the Hinchiriki dedicated a bright smile to them, full of an infinite tenderness and a renewed promise. "Thank you both for never letting go of me," Naruto muttered, knowing that the wind would carry his words towards them. "Now get some rest. I'm in charge of kicking this guy's ass." Madara clenched his staff, his only one. Rinnegan glowing with intrigue and fury. "So you refuse to die. But an increase in power won't change the fact that this world is hell, Naruto." "This world is my home," Naruto replied, wielding his staves of the six paths, the chakra boiling around him in a flawless aura. "And the people I love live in it. So I'm gonna beat that white robe off you." Next to him, a flash of black lightning announced the arrival of Sasuke Uchiha. The Avenger, having been saved by Kabuto, and having received the Seal of the Moon and the Supreme Rinnegan of the Sage, alighted. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Naruto. The final battle for the fate of mankind, the clash between gods and reincarnations, was about to fracture Earth and Heaven. But Naruto Uzumaki had already won his most important battle. He had returned from the dead, supported by the unbreakable shield of two hearts that beat solely and exclusively for him. The clash between Naruto and Sasuke against Madara Uchiha made the very fabric of reality shudder. The blonde, empowered by the chakra of the six paths, diverted the spheres of the search for truth with his own black canes, while Elucia used her supreme Rinnegan to teleport and deal devastating cuts with her spectral sword. However, Madara, cornered by the combined power of Indra and Asura's reincarnations, made a drastic decision. He tore off Kakashi's Kakugan to access the Kamui dimension, regained his original Death's Rinnegan, and returned to the battlefield. With both eyes glowing with a terrifying purple light, he flew into the sky, approaching the full moon, and woke up the third eye on his forehead, the Rhine Sharingan. "It is the end of suffering," Madara proclaimed, his voice echoing all over the planet, infinite Tsukuyomi. The moonlight became as bright as the midday sun. His rays penetrated every shadow, every hiding place, and every defense of the shinobi world. One by one, the Alliance warriors began to fall into a deep trance, their eyes reflecting the rings of the Rinnegan. As the roots of the divine tree emerged from the earth to envelop them in suffocating cocoons, Naruto, sensing the massive disturbance, swooped towards Earth. Just a few meters below him, Sakura and Jimata were exhausted, unable to react to the divine light falling on them. But before the rays of the eternal illusion could touch the two Kunoichi, an immense purple shadow covered them. Sasuke Uchiha landed in front of them, spreading the wings of his perfect Susanoo. Sasuke's Rinnegan chakra was the only force capable of blocking the Tsukuyomi's light. Naruto flew into the spectral warrior's interior, followed by Kakashi. Under the dark dome of the Susanoo, the silence was absolute. Outside, the whole world had been subjugated. Naruto landed heavily, undoing the levitation of the six paths. His golden eyes immediately searched for Sakura and Hinata. They were both safe, breathing with agitation in the darkness, looking at Sasuke with a mixture of caution and relief. "We made it," Sakura whispered, leaning on her knees. And Mata nodded, his Yakugan deactivated to conserve what little energy he had left. But the rest of the army. My family, they've all been caught." Naruto clenched his fists, frustration boiling in his blood. "We'll get through this. We will defeat Madara and disarm the Jutsu. I'm not going to let the world end in a false dream." When the outside light finally faded, the Susanoo disappeared. They went out into a silent world, and wrapped in the roots of the tree god. Madara descended in front of them, proclaiming himself as the definitive savior of mankind. But the greatest betrayal in history was about to be executed. Black Zetsu, the shadow that everyone believed Madara's will, pierced Lucia's chest from behind with his dark arm. "You're wrong, Madara," Zetsu whispered, his voice hissing and demonic. "My will is that of Kagaya Suki." Madara's body began to grotesquely inflate, absorbing such an absurd amount of chakra that the earth around her fractured. The chakra of all the shinobi trapped in the Tsukuyomi flowed into him, transforming him. The blinding light dissipated to reveal a woman floating in the air. His white hair flowed like a spectral river, Two horns poked out on his forehead, and his three eyes looked at Team 7 and Hinata, as if they were simple insects. The progenitor of the chakra, Kagaya, had returned. The oppression of his chakra was so dense that breathing became an agony. Naruto instinctively placed himself in front of Sakura and Hinata, extending his protective arms. Kagaya watched them. "This is my garden. I will not allow them to continue harming him." Without weaving a single seal, Kagaya altered reality itself. Amenamenata? The environment changed in a microsecond. The battlefield disappeared, replaced by a sea of boiling magma. They were plummeting into an ocean of lava. The infernal heat hit their faces. Sasuke immediately summoned his giant falcon, jumping on him. Kakashi threw a cradle and tied to a scroll, anchoring himself to the rock wall, along with Obito, who had just been dragged with them. But Sakura and Hinata were falling flat, with no way to fly and no nearby surfaces to stick to. Sakura-chan. Hinata. Naruto didn't hesitate. The power of the six paths allowed him to levitate. He swooped in at breakneck speed. He manifested two immense golden chakra arms from his back. One caught Sakura by the waist, and the other wrapped Hinata gently, stopping her fall just 10 meters from the burning lava. He pulled them up towards his physical body, hugging them both against his chest as he floated over the liquid hell. Sakura gasped, clinging to Naruto's neck, feeling the unbearable heat of the magma beneath them. That woman changed the whole world in the blink of an eye. "He's a monster." And Nada coughed through the sulphurous air, squeezing the blonde's jacket. "There is no end to your chakra, Naruto-kun. It's like looking directly at the sun." Naruto held them firmly, his golden eyes fixed on Kagaya, who floated impassively above them. "It doesn't matter how many tricks I have. We'll seal it. Sasuke and I have the power to do it. I just need you two to stay safe." But Kagaya wasn't going to make things so easy. He knew that Naruto and Sasuke possessed the Agoromo seals. Opening a dark portal, the Yomotsu Arasaka appeared right behind Sasuke and dragged him to another dimension. A desert of infinite sand separating the reincarnations. Naruto roared in frustration. He tried to attack her, but Kagaya's power was overwhelming. The battle turned into a cat and mouse game between the dimensions of ice and acid. Obito and Sakura, in an act of desperate bravery, used the Kamu and the Yakugu seal to search for Sasuke through the dimensional gaps of Kagaya, pushing his limits until he bled, while Naruto and Hinata gained time. In the ice dimension, Naruto used his Sage Mode to destroy the giant stalactites that Kagaya threw at them. And Nata, by his side, had recovered her breath. Knowing that his conventional physical attacks were useless against the goddess, he used his Yakugan to act as Naruto's perfect radar, warning him of the invisible portals that Kagaya opened in his blind spots. "Back and to the right, Naruto-kun," Hinata shouted. Naruto turned around just in time, blocking a surprise attack by Kagaya with his black canes. Finally, Obito's portal opened, and Sasuke fell to the ice, exhausted but back. The team was complete again. Sakura, on the verge of collapse from the massive expenditure of chakra to open the portal, was caught by Naruto, who transferred a surge of healing energy from the six paths to her. Kagaya, furious about the meeting, transported them to her most lethal dimension, a dimension of hypermassive gravity. They all fell to the ground like lead. The G-force was so crushing that even moving an inch required superhuman effort. Kagaya, floating slowly thanks to his inherent power, prepared his ultimate attack. Gray bones emerged from his palms. Tomogoro's and not Aikotsu. Bones mortal ashes. Anything those bones touched, it would disintegrate at the molecular level. He fired two projectiles, one at Naruto and one at Sasuke. Naruto, pinned to the ground by gravity, tried to move, but his muscles weren't responding fast enough. Sasuke was the same. Kakashi and Obito, the war veterans, forced their shattered bodies to stand up and act as human shields. But in that microsecond of eternity, Obito used his Kamui to save Kakashi, receiving the impact of the ash bone directly in his chest. Obito's body began to turn to dust. His last words were to Naruto, asking him to become Hokage at all costs, surrendering his soul finally in peace to reunite with Rin. Obito's death infuriated Naruto to a boiling point. The chakra boiled, overcoming the crushing gravity. He ripped off Kagaya's arm in a burst of pure speed. Taking advantage of the opening, Kakashi, who had received the residual chakra, and the two Maeki Sharingan of the Spirit of Death, awakened the perfect Susanoo. The final battle had reached its climax in the central dimension. Kagaya, desperate and mutating into an immense, unstable mass of tailed beast chakra, prepared an expansive truth-seeking sphere, designed to create a new dimension by destroying the current one. "It's now or never," Kakashi shouted, using the Kamui Shuriken to shatter Kagaya's defenses. Naruto and Sasuke, driven by the will of the entire shinobi world, rushed from opposite sides towards the goddess. Sasuke used his Amenetekara Rinnegan teleportation to close the distance instantly. Kagaya, realizing that she was cornered between the sun and the moon, tried to fly upwards to escape the ceiling. But the sky was not empty. Sakura Aruno, having jumped from Kakashi's Susanoo, using her last reserve of physical strength, was falling exactly on Kagaya's escape route. Her green eyes distilled the fury of a woman who had seen the people she loved bleed and die too many times. "Don't you dare ignore us, Shonaro!" Sakura's fist impacted with the force of a meteorite directly on Kagaya's head, fracturing her right horn, and forcing her to descend violently. Kagaya, stunned and descending, tried to use her last resort. She opened a Yomotsu and Basaka portal on her left to put her arm in and escape into another dimension, before Naruto and Sasuke touched her. But from the ground, propelled by a clone of Naruto's shadow, and Mata Iga shot out like a blue arrow. Her pearl eyes were fixed on the goddess chakra network. His hands were wrapped in the immense twin fists of Leon. "We won't let you run away." And Nada impacted her lion fists directly on Kagaya's left shoulder, right on the Tenketsu network that channeled the chakra to the portal. The soft fist blocked the divine flow for a microsecond. The dark portal of the Yomotsu Arasaka blinked and abruptly closed. Kagaya was completely trapped. Sakura had crushed her from above, and Mata had cut off his escape route from below. Naruto and Sasuke did not waste the millisecond that their companions had given them at the cost of their own life and energy. They held out their hands. Naruto's right palm with the white sun seal and Sasuke's left palm with the dark moon seal simultaneously impacted Kagaya Tsuki's chest and back. Riku Chibaku Tensei. 6 paths of planetary devastation. The seal was activated. The primordial power of the goddess was instantly sealed. The earth and the rock of the dimension began to be attracted to Kagaya's body, forming an immense stone sphere in the sky, identical to the moon that had created his prison millennia ago. The tailed beasts were released, expelled from the goddess body, falling freely towards the ground. The world stopped shaking. The silence of victory enveloped the dimension. The spirit of Agoromosuke used an invocation jutsu on a divine scale, helped by the spirits of all the cages of the past, and brought Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, and Mata and the tailed beasts back to the earthly dimension. The sun was rising over the shinobi world, illuminating the debris and dust. Naruto fell to his knees, the power of the 6 paths shutting down inside him. He was alive. They had won. He looked at Sasuke, who was standing, silent, and then at Kakashi, who was smiling under his torn mask. And then, 2 pairs of arms wrapped around him with a force that threatened to break his ribs. Sakura and Jimata fell to their knees next to him, hugging him with a desperation mixed with the purest and absolute euphoria. There were no words. Only the sound of choked sobs, racing heartbeats, and tears of triumph falling on Naruto's shattered jacket. Naruto wrapped his trembling arms around their waists, burying his face between Sakura's pink hair and Hinata's dark blue hair. He inhaled deeply, feeling the warmth of the 2 people who had kept him anchored to the world of the living. "It's over," Naruto whispered, his voice hoarse from crying. "We won. I won't leave them anymore. Go never again." But in the world of the shinobi, true peace always demands an ultimate sacrifice. Sasuke Uchiha turned around, his mismatched eyes fixed on the tailed beasts. With a single movement of his Rinnegan gaze, he trapped the 9 beasts in genjutsu and locked them in immense stone spheres. Using the Chibaku Tensei, Sakura and Jimata separated from Naruto, looking at Sasuke in disbelief and horror. "Sasuke, what are you doing? The war is over," Sakura shouted, getting to her feet with difficulty. Sasuke looked at her coldly. "The war against Kaguya is over. But the revolution of this rotten world is just beginning. I'm going to execute the 5 cages who are under the Tsukuyomi, destroy the tailed beasts, and become the absolute darkness of this world. To force peace. And to do it, I have to cut my last link." Sasuke looked at Naruto. "You. Come to the Valley of the End. There we will fix this once and for all." As Sasuke disappeared in a flash of speed, silence fell like a slab of lead on the group. Naruto stood up slowly, clenching his fists. I knew this moment would come. The curse of hatred between Indra and Asura was to be broken in this generation. Sakura took a step towards him, clutching his sleeve, her green eyes filled with tears of frustration. "Naruto, please. You don't have to go. You've done enough. You've bled enough for him. For us." And Nada stood on the other side of Naruto, without saying a word, but her pearl gaze reflected the same terror. The thought of Naruto dying at the hands of his best friend, just as they had reached peace, was unbearable. Naruto looked at them both, the pain reflected in his blue eyes, but also an unwavering steely resolve. He held Sakura's hand, and then took Hinata's, interlacing her fingers tightly. "I have to go. It's not just for him, it's for the future of this world," Naruto said, his voice soft but firm as a rock. "Sasuke is suffering. He's carrying all the hate alone. If I don't stop him now, everything we did, everything Neji, Obito, and Master Hirai have already sacrificed, will have been of no use." Naruto kissed Sakura's forehead, and then Hinata's. "Don't die," Sakura pleaded, her voice barely a broken whisper. "We will be waiting for you. No matter how long it takes," Hinata added, squeezing his hand one last time before releasing him. Naruto smiled, the same radiant smile that had lit up their lives since they were children. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I never break my promises. I'll get this idiot ready so the 3 of us can go home together." And with a burst of speed, the leaf Hinchiriki shot out into the Valley of the End, leaving behind the 2 women of his life, who joined their hands in silence, praying with all the strength of their souls that the sun. It shone again one last time after the storm. The deafening roar of the waterfall of the Valley of the End was the only sound that broke the sepulchral silence, between the 2 immense stone statues of Esirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. The water was falling with the same fury with which the shinobi story had been written in blood and tragedy. But Naruto Uzumaki, standing on the head of the first cage, was determined that this waterfall would wash away the hatred forever. In front of him, on the statue of Madara, Sasuke Uchiha was watching him with his supreme Rinnegan, and his Sharingan spinning with an absolute coldness. "You're going to have to kill me," Naruto declared Sasuke, his voice devoid of any emotion. "If you want to protect those 2 women you left behind, and this flawed world, you're going to have to end my life. I will cut the past, kill the cages, and become the only god this world needs to keep the peace in the darkness." Naruto didn't look away. His heavenly eyes shone with the intensity of a clear sky after the storm. "I'm not going to kill you, Sasuke. And I'm not going to let you sink into the darkness. I already lost my family once when I was a baby. I lost Master Jiraiya, and I saw Sakura and Hinata bleed for me. I'm not going to lose the only brother I have left. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you until you open your eyes." The crash was apocalyptic. There was no warm-up or exchange of empty words. Sasuke summoned the perfect Susanoo, his immense purple armor soaring into the heavens, as Naruto unleashed Kurama's golden chakra avatar, having regained the Jin half of his insides. The spectral swords of the Susanoo collided with the chakra claws of Kurama. The shock wave destroyed the surrounding forests and altered the course of the river. Sasuke, using the power of the tailed beasts that he had sealed in the Chibukutensei, channeled the chakra of the 9 demons into his Susanoo, transforming it into a divine vessel of pure electricity and darkness. Naruto, outclassed in firepower, did not back down. He concentrated all the natural energy of the world around him, absorbing the power of the wind, the earth and the sun, through a shadow clone. Kurama adopted an Asura form with 3 heads and 6 arms. Disappear, Naruto. Sasuke roared, firing Indra's arrow, the most devastating attack in his arsenal, imbued with the pure power of lightning and destruction. I won't let you go, Sasuke. Naruto responded by releasing 2 immense massive Raisin Shuriken, one of pure natural energy, and one infused with the power of tailed beasts. The collision of Indra's arrow and the Raisin Shuriken in the sky of the Valley of the End fractured the atmosphere. The white explosion annihilated the clouds, vaporized the river, and turned night into day. The immense stone statues of the founders of Konoha were decapitated by the shockwave and began to crumble, symbolizing the end of the cycle of hatred between the clans. Hours later, when the divine chakra was exhausted, the battle descended to its most raw and brutal form. No avatars, no jutsu destroyers of continents. Just 2 shinobi, exhausted, bleeding out and with torn muscles, exchanging blows with a clean fist on the dry riverbed. Naruto received a knee to the stomach that made him spit blood, but responded with a right hook that fractured Sasuke's cheekbone. They stumbled, fell into the mud, and got back up by sheer force of will. Sasuke, breathing hard, prepared his last attack. The sound of 1,000 chirping birds filled his left hand. The Chidori, darkened by the flames of the Matarasu. Naruto, shuffling his feet, raised his right hand. A blue Rasengan, bright and pure, formed on his palm, driven, pulsed by the memory of every person who had touched his life. He felt the hand of Jiraiya, of Minato, of Kasina, and finally, he felt the unmistakable and soft warmth of Sakura and Jimata's hands overlapping his, giving him the final strength he needed. The 2 friends ran towards each other, launching their ultimate attacks with a scream that tore at their throats. The crash lit up the shattered valley for the last time. The energy sphere expanded into absolute silence before detonating, consuming both shinobi in a blinding light. The dripping of the cold rain woke up Sasuke. He blinked slowly, looking at the overcast sky. He couldn't move his body. A stabbing pain radiated from his left shoulder. He turned his head weakly to one side. A few inches away from him, Naruto was lying on the ground, looking at the sky itself. His arms, Naruto's right and Sasuke's left, had been completely shattered from the elbow by the explosion. The blood mixing in a single puddle on the stone of the severed hand of the Ashibama statue. Why is that? Sasuke whispered, his voice hoarse and broken. You lost an arm. You're bleeding to death. Why go so far for me? Why didn't you ever cut me, Naruto? Naruto smiled faintly, coughing up some blood. Because you're my friend, you idiot. And because I know what the pain of being alone is. I would have never let you drown in that darkness. Sasuke closed his eyes, tears finally breaking the dam of hate he had built for years. They slid down his blood-stained cheeks, washing away the curse of the Ucha. Idiot. Me. I lost. Silence enveloped them again, but this time, it was a silence of peace. The war was really over. But time was running out for them. The blood loss was massive, and the shadows of unconsciousness began to pull on Naruto's mind. He closed his eyes, imagining for the last time the faces of the 2 women he had promised to return to. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps hitting the wet stone broke the wind. Naruto? The blonde's eyes suddenly opened. Landing with a desperate grace from the top of the cliff, 3 figures reached the shattered stone hand. Kakashi was coming behind, but the first 2 to arrive fell to their knees in the pool of blood without a microsecond's hesitation. Sakura let out a choked sob at the sight of Naruto and Sasuke's shattered stump. Her hands were shaking violently, but her training as the world's best medical kunoichi was triggered by pure instinct. No, no, no. Hold on, Naruto, hold on. Sakura placed both hands on the 2 shinobi's amputated wounds, their green chakra glowing with blinding intensity, sealing the blood vessels to stop the fatal bleeding instantly. And Nada dropped down to Naruto's right side. His Yakugan was deactivated, his pearl eyes overflowing with tears that fell directly on the blonde's pale face. With infinite tenderness, He took Naruto's left hand, the only one he had left, pressed it against his cheek, kissed his mud-stained knuckles. He came, Naruto-kun. We're here. We found you, Hinata was crying, her voice trembling from the terror of almost losing him. Naruto, feeling Sakura's healing warmth on his right shoulder and Hinata's soft skin on his left hand, sketched a smile that lit up the gloomy valley. Sakura-chan. Hinata. I knew they were coming. I told them that he would always come back. Sakura, with tears falling on Naruto's chest, looked up at Sasuke. Her green eyes no longer had the blind infatuation of childhood, but the compassion of a comrade who had seen hell. Sasuke looked at her, remorse crushing his chest. Sakura, I'm sorry. For everything I've done to you. For everything I did to them. Sakura closed her eyes, nodding slowly, as he continued to heal them. Idiot! Just shut up and let me heal you. Sasuke turned his gaze to Hinata, who was not letting go of Naruto's hand. And thanks to you, Iga. And to you, Sakura. Thank you for not letting this idiot die. He is the only light this world needs. And Nada looked at him and gave him a soft and understanding smile. Naruto-kun always believed in you, Sasuke-san. We just make sure that her light never goes out. Kakashi, standing behind them, smiled under his mask as he saw his students finally gathered together, healing their physical and spiritual wounds. The team was complete, and the world was safe. With the last remnants of their chakra, Naruto and Sasuke joined their remaining hands and wove the seal of reconciliation. All over the world, the roots of the divine tree withered. The light of the infinite Tsukuyomi faded, and 80,000 shinobi opened their eyes to a new dawn. The biggest and most devastating war in shinobi history was over. Epilogue. The three sons of Konoha. 7 years after the end of the war, the bright midday sun was falling on the Moderna and bustling Hidden Leaf Village. The city had expanded, embracing technology without losing its traditional roots, becoming the epicenter of world peace. At the top of the monument to the Hokages, the newly sculpted face of the 7th Hokage watched over the prosperity of his home. Inside the huge circular office of the Hokage Tower, Naruto Uzumaki, wearing his impeccable white cape with red flames, sighed heavily, dropping his head on a mountain of trading scrolls from the Cloud Village. His right arm, now a perfect prosthesis, cultured with Esirama cells and covered with bandages, she held an ink brush that threatened to break out of bureaucratic frustration. The office's oak door opened without anyone knocking. Shikamaru, the Hokage's advisor, poked his head out with a lazy smile. Naruto, the council can wait. You have much scarier visitors than the fire daimyo. Naruto looked up just in time to see two women enter the office, radiating an authority and a beauty that left the Ambu guards in the hallway breathless. To the left came Sakura Yuzu. No, Sakura Aruno, supreme head of Konoha's medical department and the strongest Kunoichi in the world. She was wearing an elegant red blouse and a white skirt, her pink hair falling perfectly over her shoulders. On the right entered Imada Iga, the matriarchal leader of the Iga clan and the princess of the Yakugan, wearing a beautiful lavender-colored modified kimono that allowed her total mobility, with her long dark blue hair rocking at every step. Both of them were carrying cloth-wrapped bento boxes in their hands. If the 7th Hokage thinks he can skip lunch for the 3rd day in a row, I'm going to have to smash this desk with him on it. Sakura stated, resting her hands on her hips with a fierce smile. And Mata let out a crystal-clear laugh, moving closer to the desk to gently push aside the important scrolls. You promised that we would have lunch together today, Naruto-kun. Boruto and Sarada are at the academy, so it's just the 3 of us today. The bureaucratic fatigue disappeared from Naruto's face in an instant. The 7th Hokage got up from his oak chair, circled the desk, and pulled them both into an immense hug. The shinobi world had murmured when the war hero did not choose between his 2 great loves, but decided that his heart and his life had enough space for both. The polyamorous marriage between the Hinshiriki, the medical Kunoichi, and Princess Igano only broke the most conservative traditions, but proved that the love forged on the battlefield, in blood, tears, and devotion. Absolutely, I did not know of established rules. They were the most powerful, respected, and loving family in Konoha. Naruto kissed Sakura deeply, feeling the burning heat and strength of the woman who had saved him. Life countless times. Then he turned and kissed Imada with the same intensity, losing himself in the tenderness and unwavering devotion of the woman who was always his refuge in the storm. Sorry, Naruto laughed, raising his hands in surrender as Sakura tapped him on the chest. They're right. Paperwork can go to hell for an hour. They sat on the sofa in the office, sharing the meal that they had both lovingly prepared. Sakura was stealing the pieces of pork from his vento, while Imada gently offered him perfectly made onigiris, making sure he ate well. Naruto looked at them, savoring not only the food, but the perfect scene in front of him. He remembered the lonely boy who sat on the swing in front of the academy, crying because no one was looking at him. He looked at his hands, remembering the blood of the war, the cold of the Valley of the End, and the absolute warmth of the two women who had brought him back from the dead. He had achieved world peace. He had saved his best friend. He had fulfilled his dream of being an Hokage. But his greatest treasure, his true absolute victory, was right there, on that sofa, smiling and joking with him. I love them, Naruto suddenly blurted out, his voice charged with a sincerity that made both Kunoichi pause. Sakura and Jimata exchanged a complicit glance, the same love reflecting in their green and pearl eyes. They leaned towards him simultaneously, resting their heads on the broad shoulders of the seventh Hokage. We love you too, you noisy idiot, whispered Akura, interlacing her hand with his prosthetic right. Forever and ever, Naruto-kun muttered Hinata, interlacing his hand with the blonde's left. The afternoon sun bathed the office in a warm golden light. The story of Uzumaki Naruto was no longer a tragedy of loneliness or a curse of demons. It was the legend of a man who became the son of the shinobi world, escorted for all eternity by his two unbreakable, lethal, and absolutely perfect queens. At the end of the story, do not forget to subscribe so that you do not miss the next theories. Would you also support me by joining as a channel member? The link of the creator of the story will be in the description. That said, see you in the next theory. Bye.